All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'll call the regular meeting of Township Council for Monday, March 23rd to order. And of course, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples, and in particular, acknowledge our valued relationships with the Katzie, Kwantlen, Matsqui, and Semiahmoo First Nations. With that, can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Moved by Councillor Ferguson, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Any discussion on the agenda? Seeing none, call the question on the agenda. Councillor Whitmarsh, you have to. Yep. That carries with the Councillor Richter opposed. Going to motion to adopt the regular meeting minutes of March 9th. Moved by Councillor Rent, seconded by Councillor Bailey. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the minutes of March 9th. That carries unanimously. Our first delegation today is from Daniel Schneider from the Langley Community Action Team. Please come forward. And great to have you here today, and go ahead.
That's it. Perfect. All right. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here today. My name is Daniel Snyder, and I'm here on behalf of the Langley Community Action Team, alongside community members, support, and families who have been deeply impacted by the toxic drug crisis. Our team has been active for 8 years, providing education, naloxone training, stigma reduction, and advocacy for resources in our community. And over that time, as the crisis has continued, we have seen Langley add some important and life-saving supports. Despite these efforts, however, the loss has continued. Since the crisis was declared in 2016, more than 400 people in Langley have lost their lives. These were not statistics. They were parents, children, siblings, friends, co-workers, and neighbors. Communities across BC and Canada have created public overdose memorials, as remembrance and installations as part of acknowledging loss, reducing stigma, and supporting collective healing. The memorial project we are discussing today is non-political. It is not about policy debates. It is rather about acknowledging loss, validating grief, and recognizing that these were valued members of our community whose lives mattered. I would now like to invite Lisa to share a little more about this.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. My name is Lisa Y. I'm here today as a member of the Langley Community Action Team, asking you to support the creation of a permanent memorial in Langley to honor the many lives lost to the toxic drug crisis. Our youngest daughter, Renee, struggled with substance use for many years. In 2020, at the young age of 29, she lost her life to fentanyl poisoning. Renee was a loving person, a kind person, with dreams and aspirations for a good life. She described drugs as the monster that wanted her dead, and she never stopped trying to free herself from them. The pain of losing our daughter never goes away and is worsened by the fact that drug-related deaths are largely stigmatized and overlooked in our society. The portrayal in the news of homeless people dying of fentanyl poisoning paints an inaccurate picture and only serves to deepen the stigma surrounding this crisis. The reality is that most people dying in BC are males between the ages of 29 and 60, many of them employed and with families who pass away in their own homes. The highly toxic drug supply not only affects people with problematic substance use, it also affects those who use drugs to function for their daily lives, as well as recreational users. The staggering death rates due to this crisis vastly exceed those during the COVID pandemic, and they deserve the same level of attention and concern in our society. Breaking the silence and recognizing these deaths is important, and a memorial in a public space would be a good start. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. Michelle will now complete our presentation.
We sincerely appreciate your time and attention to this very personal and important request. As you've heard today, this crisis has deeply impacted our community and the people here in Langley. We're here representing many voices, loved ones of those we have lost, people with lived and living experience who have been impacted by toxic drugs, frontline workers, and who are dedicated to supporting people every day, and community members who are working toward meaningful change. To be clear about what we're asking for today, we are respectfully requesting Council's support in 3 areas. First, assistance identifying a suitable location within an existing park or a future park for the memorial. Second, consideration of a financial or in-kind contribution toward the development of the memorial. And third, support for a community engagement process so that families, people with lived and living experience, and community members can help shape the design. The memorial we are proposing is envisioned as a thoughtfully designed space within an existing public park, developed collaboratively to reflect the voices and experiences of our community. Key elements might include benches for quiet reflection, a plaque with a collective message, and a symbolic piece of public art made from durable materials. The design would emphasize inclusivity, accessibility, and collective remembrance, ensuring that this space honors those lost while supporting community healing. Thank you for your time and consideration.
All right, thanks. I have a few questions from council, and I'll have one myself as well. Councillor Martins, go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, Daniel, and Lisa, and Michelle. Thank you very much for all being here, and thank you for the work that you do in our community. I personally have attended the overdose awareness event at Douglas Park every year since 2022. I too have lost friends and loved ones, so the message hits close. I fully support what you want to do, and what I hear, it needs to be done in a way that's a safe space where people can find connection and working through grief, and grief never goes away. We live with it. I would love to hear more of your thoughts and vision for what that would be, and if there are ideas you might have for where we could best do this that's accessible and safe. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to just spitball. If you have, if if you could.
We've had a few, kind of informal conversations with various people in both in the city and the township. We're presenting to the township today with the hope that this would be in a township park.
Okay.
And so I know that we do have some allies on council who are interested in seeing this happen. I'm not super clear on kind of how we can make it happen, and that's kind of why we're here today, looking for a little direction, looking for people that are willing to help us identify a suitable location. And as a community organization, we do have access to some funds to support this project and work with, hopefully work with the township to see it come to pass.
Okay. No, thank you. I definitely would support this, and usually the next steps are after a delegation. The council has the capacity to refer your delegation to staff, and there we could start a process of conversations with people with a report back to council on possible locations, costs,
That would be
how
wonderful.
that would work, what that looks like, how much it would cost, that kind of thing, and where we would identify the funding for it. So this is the first step, I know there's other speakers, but I would be more than happy to move that you're, whenever it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, that we could refer this delegation to staff for a report.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for coming.
Thanks, Tim.
These calls are very difficult calls. So, while it's hard for the families and everyone involved, that includes first responders. Mm-hmm. They are horrible calls to attend and are a significant amount of PTSD. So I am really glad to see you bringing this forward, because it's not only remembrance and healing for the families directly involved, it's also goes a long way towards helping first responders also do their healing when it comes to these calls. Sure. So I'm all on board on this one. You know that I show up in a different capacity, for your memorials, but yeah, thanks for bringing this forward. This kind of stuff is very much needed for the whole community. Thanks.
Councilor Ferguson?
Oh, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for coming as a delegation. It's interesting, it's been said already. I think it probably touches everybody in this room and myself working for young people with serious behavioral problems, and losing a few over the years is not easy. I did want to also, I know you got your ask for the Township of Langley. It's been said that there's support here. I also wanted to put something else out for just thinking for you folks, especially families and friends that have experienced the challenges, is there's an opportunity also at regional parks to put a bench up. That's Metro Bank. And we have 5 parks in the town, at least 5 in the Township of Langley, with more coming. So it's another opportunity for stay a family. And I walk my benches all the time and see they're remembering somebody, and then people can sit down and remember. So I just wanted to add that as well. And if you want any information on that, certainly I can provide that. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming, and I would be so happy to support a memorial in one of our parks. And I don't have much more to add, except it's just something that I think touches the lives of so many people, especially in the last 10, 15 years. So it just would love to see something like this happen in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you guys very much for coming. Been looking forward to your presentation, and it's been a privilege to be able to come out to the action table a few times now and learn a lot, frankly, and so appreciate what you guys do for the whole community. And I know, talking about this, you had the chance to talk to Langley City as well, and if you could refresh my memory on the direction, the potential collaboration there that you're looking for.
So, yeah, we provided essentially the same delegation to Langley City as well, and they made us a recommendation to staff to explore that for a city park. And so our community feels strongly that Langley's large enough for 2 of these memorials, and since we happen to have 2 councils, may as well talk to both of them.
Awesome, appreciate it. Thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, and on that score, if you discussed it, what has Langley City Council done with the?
They made a recommendation to explore, so we're just, I guess I'll have to review the minutes and see exactly what's going to happen. That was just a week or so ago.
Do you know what process they used for that exploration?
I'm going to have to read the fine print on what they recommend. Arts and Culture Department. Sounds like they referred it to Arts and Culture.
Committee?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Councilor Richter, go ahead.
Yes, thank you all very much for coming and speaking to us. I just wanted to go back to your ask, and if I'm understanding it correctly, you want to have 2 memorials, one in the city and one in the township, and you'd like to have it in the township, in a township park. Do you have a preferred park?
I would say we don't have a preferred park.
Okay.
No, we're definitely open to suggestions. I do know that neighborhoods that have been highest impacted by the toxic drug crisis include Willoughby. So that area and the surrounding area is, of interest.
Okay.
I've heard rumors of a future park at 72nd and 208th. So that's something that's curious to us, but we're very open to exploring this. Yeah.
Great. You also mentioned a donation. Did you have a dollar amount in mind that you'd like?
I think we probably chat about that at a later date.
At a later
Yeah.
date? Okay. And finally, your last request was support, I believe, for the survivors. Did I get that right, or for the?
Community engagement process?
Oh, right. So like when it comes to thinking about the design and how this is actually looks in its final form, that we would want to ensure that people with lived experience, community members, family members that were impacted had some voice in that. So.
Okay, well, I just want to echo what both all the councilors up here have said. I'm fully in support, and I will definitely be supporting Councillor Martin's motion to send it to staff to work with you guys.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, thanks so much for coming today. Really appreciate the presentation, and certainly I'm very supportive of this. I'm just wondering if the if you've had a chance to work with talk to other community groups that might be connected to this challenge that we have in our community, maybe some of the indigenous communities around this sort of location in a park, or if you've had that kind of conversation with those groups.
Specifically around this memorial
Yes,
topic?
yeah.
Not really anything formal. It's just casual conversations based with people that we're in relationship with. So that's kind of, we're treating this as essentially the first step here and looking for the township support, and then we kind of go pursue those other exploratory conversations if we can move forward.
Right, okay. Well, thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I just have one more question, if you don't mind. Yeah. Just wanted, so you're here asking for this in the township. Was that the ask in the city? That
Yeah.
they contribute to one in the township, or
No,
two?
to have a separate one in
It
the
is
city.
two.
Yeah,
That's the idea?
yeah.
Okay. Really appreciate that clarification, and again, thank you so much for bringing this here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Martins, go ahead, we'll just deal with that now.
Sorry, I can go ahead with the motion now? Oh, thank you. Okay. I'd like to move that,
Let's get it on the floor first, Councilor
Yeah.
Bailey. Go ahead, Councilor
yeah,
Martins.
okay, I'd like to move that we refer the delegation to staff to work with the delegates on potential locations, designs, associated costs, and potential funding sources for a memorial. I think for victims of the overdose crisis, toxic drug crisis. Yeah.
Councilor Bailey, you wish to second that? That's seconded by Councilor Bailey. Yeah, any discussion? Yeah, seeing none. Is there any other discussion on? Oh, Councilor Martins, go ahead.
Can I amend my own motion? I think I missed saying for staff to report to council. Did I include that language in the motion?
To your worship, to Councilor Martins, generally speaking, a referral back to staff does infer that that would come back via report to council or a memo, depending on the resolution itself.
Okay, then that's fine.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question on that. That carries unanimously. Next delegation, Jamie Dixon and Diane Kask. Please come forward. Great, thank you. Go ahead. Good to see you here today.
Okay, right. My name is Diane Kask. I lived in Olive Grove for 39 years, and I've recently moved. I'm here today to speak on increased safety for pedestrians on 264th Street, Highway 13 between 32nd Avenue and 28th Avenue. I'm here with Jamie Dixon. Their son, James Dixon, was killed by a double dump truck while crossing the intersection with the crosswalk signal. This is a dangerous intersection. There have been many near misses. I understand that current provincial ministry guidelines have been met with traffic lights and crosswalks for this intersection. This intersection of two highways in a residential area, the mentality of the truck drivers and other vehicles is not a residential area. 264th Street leads to the border and east-west connectors. This area requires further safety measures for pedestrians to ensure that vehicles traveling down 264th Street and those turning onto Fraser Highway are fully aware of pedestrians in crosswalks and walking on the side of the road. The dump truck driver that hit James did not see him. James was on his way to work at McDonald's, which was across the street. It was November and dark at 6:30 in the morning. Even though it is not currently required, overhead flashing pedestrian picture signs must be added to the other safety measures in place of this intersection to ensure drivers understand that someone is in the crosswalk. There are 5 traffic lanes to cross. The crosswalk signal and chirping sound for the blind tell pedestrians that it is safe. There needs to be this lit pedestrian picture sign over the highway to alert truck and other drivers that someone is in the crosswalk to make it safe. A raised paved sidewalk has been installed between Fraser Highway and 32nd Avenue. Previously, there were only the white plastic posts, which had been run over many times. There must be protection for pedestrians from 30th A Avenue, 28th Avenue. A divided multi-purpose path would be best, which there's room for, but at the very least, a raised paved sidewalk needs to be installed between 30A and 28th Avenue. Also, adding a wide white line with ridges to alert drivers before coming too close to the sidewalk needs to be installed from 32nd Avenue to 28th Avenue. The current paved sidewalk from Fraser Highway to 32nd Avenue blends in with the road, so a wide white line needs to be added there as well. Please apply for the approval from MOTT and use monies in the 2026 budget to create a safer way for pedestrians to access businesses and walk to school. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions after Jamie Dixon has spoken.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of Council. My name is Jamie Dixon. I'm standing before you as the mother of a fallen first responder and to advocate for urgent safety improvements at the intersection of Fraser Highway and 264th Street. On November 4th, 2024, my son tragically lost his life at just 19 years old while walking to work as the result of a motor vehicle accident at this intersection. He was crossing Fraser Highway in the marked crosswalk on the west side traveling southbound when he was struck. He had the right of way. The intersection is inherently dangerous. Large trucks turning right onto Fraser Highway frequently mount or cross over the curb because the turn is less than a 90-degree angle. In addition, overgrown bushes at the northwest corner create a significant blind spot for drivers navigating to turn. Many pedestrians are already aware of this risk and stand back near the pole to avoid being struck by vehicles encroaching onto the sidewalk. Compounding this danger is the limited pedestrian crossing time, as well as the poorly maintained and partially functioning features of the visually impaired. When the walk signal activates, pedestrians must move quickly to enter the crosswalk before the light changes, increasing the risk for those crossing, particularly in low visibility or high traffic conditions. While nothing can bring my son back, I am asking for meaningful action to prevent another family from enduring the profound trauma and loss that ours has suffered. I respectfully urge the township to take the following steps to improve safety at this intersection. Remove the bushes at the northwest corner of Fraser Highway and 264th Street to eliminate the blind spot. Modify the corner geometrically to better accommodate semi-trucks, ensuring they can turn safely without breaching the sidewalk. Install pedestrian motion sensor technology so that when the walk signal is activated, lighting is automatically adjusted to be brighter and more visible, improving pedestrian safety and accessibility. These changes would significantly reduce risk and could save lives. I sincerely hope you will consider this request with the urgency it deserves. Thank you for your time, attention, and commitment to public safety.
All right, so first of all, obviously, speak for all of council on this. Very sorry for your family's loss and the tragedy that it represents. Obviously, nobody wants to see that, and very much appreciate you coming here today to present it to us as you have. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to all of council. No one can say anything that will be enough. I very much appreciate you being here today with Diane and the support that you have in the audience. I'm going to move, obviously, I'll move a motion that this is referred to report, and I'll put a timeline on it as well. Sometimes we request reports for upgrades to streets, and we don't see them for quite a long time.
A second.
And then we'll get that with a specific timeline on that for you as well. And I do have some other questions from council, but again, I want to reiterate that we see the issue at that intersection, among other intersections on major corridors such as the bypass and other intersections in our community that are very old and exist at a very old design. And we have a number of priorities for a number of needs in the community to make our pedestrian crossings safer in all communities, and this is no exception.
Thank you.
Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate, I'm, very sorry for your loss and for your family, and no family should have to go through what you've gone through. You've made some recommendations, and I know that Modi has been involved or not involved. Is there anything that we can do as a council to help get them more involved, or has that ship sailed?
No, I do believe that if you apply or if you come up with some things you will decide to do, that if you apply to MOTT, they will approve it.
So as a council, even with the mayor's stamp of approval, that if we sent that to Modi, then that might help.
Yeah, if you send it to them, I'm almost positive they will approve it.
So if I made a motion that maybe our mayor would, if that was acceptable?
I can include it in the motion.
Yeah, okay, so you'll put that into the motion? Okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, I have Councillor Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for coming forward. Improve visibility at things like this, and especially when there's an incident already in play, is a very serious, serious event where well over 100 first responders every year get injured or killed across North America. So if we can do anything to improve not only this intersection, but bring better visibility and process towards what happens at collisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that concludes the delegation, and again, I thank you for coming here today, but we'll do the motion right now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to move that delegation C2 be referred to staff for a report to be back to council no later than the end of Q2 2026, and that correspondence on behalf of council be submitted to the Ministry of Transportation in advance of that report. Seconded by Councillor Ferguson. Is there any other discussion or questions? So now call Councillor Whitmarsh. Go ahead.
Sorry, just wanted to clarify the letter that is sent from yourself on behalf of council. Does that outline what our plans might be for the intersection, or does it also make a request to them to make some improvements from their sections of their road that they can improve upon as well?
Yeah, I think we can take all of that under advisement and get them a letter which is advocating strongly that something needs to be done, and that we'll be in touch with potential proposals, and then I'll also request a meeting with the minister as well to go over it personally.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we know what the need is, and I think our frustration is that of course they'll allow us to upgrade their road, but I'll start talking to them about some kind of partnership on that improvement.
Appreciate it, thank you.
All right, thanks. All right, so with that, call the question on that request for a report and communication. That carries unanimously. Our third delegation is from Jag Sohi regarding 27A Avenue. Again, thanks for coming here today. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Councils. My name is Jag Sohi, and we're here to address the parking concern on 27A Avenue. First of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. We're here today to respectfully ask the township to reconsider the no parking restriction that were recently implemented on 27A Avenue between 200 to 203 Street. When all of us purchased our homes, street parking was permitted. It was part of how the neighborhood functioned. families made long-term decisions based on the understanding. These new restrictions have significant changes and it's created real everyday challenges for residents. For many households, including mine, street parking isn't just a convenience, it's necessity. We have multiple vehicles, visiting family members, and growing household with multi-generation for better affordability housing. Without access to street parking, we're now forced to overcrowd driveways on park far away from our homes. This is especially difficult for seniors, families with young children, or anyone carrying out groceries or equipment. What used to be a simple, manageable situation that now became stressful and inconvenient for daily basis. Safety and concerns. We understand that safety is important and we fully support safe roads use. However, completely removing parking may not be the only best solution. In fact, it can create unattended issues such as vehicles being pushed into nearby streets, increasing conjunctions elsewhere. The only safe alternative is that allow one-side parking. This option can balance both safety and practicality. Road width and design. The road is approximately 6 meters or 20 feet wide. However, instead of removing parking entirely, we asked the township to explore the design and adjustments. For example, there is boulevard, a grass strip that could be looked at. Or one-side parking could provide a balanced solution maintaining safety while restoring some level of parking access. Below the attachment, we have some pictures of some of the streets that already exist that are similar width. I believe, let me get to that pictures right here. So similar width that has 12 feet of space there for traffic to flow through. We are not here to oppose, we're here to work together. We respectfully ask Township to reassess the current parking restrictions, engage with restricted residents directly, explore alternative solutions that works for everyone. A collaborative approach will lead to a better outcome for both for our community and for the Township. In closing statement, we simply ask for fairness and consideration. The neighborhood has always been a place where families feel comfortable and supported. Restoring reasonable parking option will go a long way in maintaining that quality of life. Thank you for your time today, for letting us speak.
Thank you. I don't see any questions from council. Well, now I do.
Sorry.
Yeah. Councilor Whitmarsh, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Sohi, for coming today and bringing up this issue. I just wanted a clarification. You indicated that when you first moved into that area, you were allowed to have on-street parking.
Correct.
And so has there been any change to the road that caused there to now be a restriction on on-street parking?
They're saying, the city's saying that's unfinished subdivision, so only half of the road's been developed. The other half, there still houses exist that we don't know when they're gonna be developed in future.
But his answer is anything has changed, so
No, nothing has changed. It's still the same.
Like when you moved in, you were allowed to, and then the restrictions put on,
Correct.
but the roads remained exactly the same
Correct.
during that time?
Everything's still the same. Nothing changed.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councilor Kunst?
Yeah, when did you move to Brookswood?
In 2023.
Oh, okay, well, welcome to Brookswood.
Thank you.
I just had a question to, through emeritus staff. It looks like you submitted your formal request to engineering in November of 2025. Has the site assessment or formal review been completed since then, or is the letter included in this package the only response the residents have?
Yeah, we can deal with questions from staff at the conclusion of the delegation.
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. All right, so Councilor Bailey, go ahead.
Yeah, I have to say that I have some reservations about this, having been one of those guys that drives the fire trucks down. And one of the problems is I saw you had a video about a truck passing. My reservations come from two. One is working. So, and it's tight enough when you're coming down an alley like that in an engine, or even worse in a Quint or that. But when you have to stop at a call and you have to work at that call, if it's too tight, like an awful lot of these streets are, you don't have adequate room to run the hoses, hydrants, and also access towards the side compartments. Another danger that is very real is that there's kids in the neighborhood. When they see a fire truck, sometimes they like to run out and have a look at it. And when you have parking and on the side of the street, the driver of the vehicles slow down and have to be extremely vigilant, watching for kids or animals coming out between those parked cars. So I understand the need for parking, but from the emergency services point of view, this can cause significant problems also.
I appreciate your concern, Council. We do not want to jeopardize any safety or something. We think that's very important with the point you have made. The only concern we have, it's not a very long road. There's not much traffic, it's just the residents there. And the biggest thing is there were no signs of something when we all bought those properties, and just assuming that there's parking there. So now, if that parking is disallowed, there are about 30, 40 vehicles on that street. They'll all go somewhere, and it will actually cause a big problem for the whole complex. That's why we are just requesting to review and find a good solution. If some portions of the street are allowed and some not, so that, we could find a way without obstructing this. I totally understand the vehicles can pass very easily, but they might need a little more space. That's why we just happened to see something, the picture which says on 195 and 70th. Similarly, both vehicles are passed, it's about 12 feet. So the logic or the point we're trying to make is, if it is workable in some other areas of the city, can this be allowed here for some time till the other side of the road is developed? So we are saying just one side parking, if that could work.
I understand that, but also I want to make sure when staff is looking at this, that the fire department is fully engaged in this about any hazards it will present towards them being able to function and be able to get to calls efficiently. There are some places that have parking that should not have parking because of the possibility of emergency services. So my ask is just make sure that when you're looking at this, the fire department is fully engaged in with their input. Thank you.
Thanks.
Councillor Richter?
Yes, thank you very much for your delegation. The picture that you had up, now I made a note here, it was at 195 Street and 70th Avenue.
Yes,
So that's a Surrey standard, correct?
correct,
And that looks like a pretty new subdivision.
correct.
In the area that you're in, is it built to the same street standard now?
Lisa, do you want?
Technically, we don't know what standard it would be, but we just happened to be there and we noticed there are some locations, maybe we didn't even recognize, because 196 Langley starts, we just saw something and we wanted to bring it to your notice, that if some areas can be served, is it okay to keep that small street open as well and, without compromising on safety?
I think the issue we might have, though, and Councillor Bailey did raise a good question about the fire trucks, because there's a new fire hall going down in that area on the other side. So they might need the wider, or they might need all that space for the fire trucks, so.
It might not be, I understand, the fire trucks would be there, but this is not a main road or something, so they might not need it. They will only need to come here if something needs to be served for the residents on the street. So in any way, they'll be using 200 Street to go anywhere. So this is away from that. So I don't think so by changing the location of the fire trucks closer or something probably would not make any difference, because it's on 200 Street and they'll directly go wherever. But yes, if there's an emergency in our block there, so on that street, definitely they need to come there. And we also want to just review it and make sure they can comfortably, service us.
Well, the picture, I guess I found a bit confusing just because it was showing parking on both sides and then the street narrowed and there wasn't any parking on either side. And I know some of the roads down in Brookswood have been there for many, many years.
Yes.
And they will, of course, be upgraded and changed with development. I just don't know that that's going to happen in the near term.
We understand, Council. And, most of the residents who made it, it's very beautiful. It's a calm neighborhood. Most of us moved from Surrey and, we all liked it. That's the reason we moved it with our families. And the big houses, every house has a two-bedroom legal suite as well. I think probably because of this SSMUH, whatever the government wanted to put more families there. But if there is no parking, that will cause us a lot of trouble, right? Yeah, and there's no bus service in the area, so most of the people would rely on their vehicles.
True. Well, thank you for your delegation today.
Councilor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Worship, and thank you for your presentation. For the streets 201 and 202, the north-south portions that are, they're tiny, but they're finished, are people allowed to park on the streets there? They're just not allowed to park on the east-west street, correct? So the standard that those streets are at, the local, or the urban local standard, will have parking on both sides. So I would imagine, once that street's finished, there'll be parking on both sides?
Correct.
So has there been any indication from staff why there was no signs when you moved in and then signs put in once you moved in? Was it just an incomplete development and so there was no need to put in the signs yet?
I think the only logic we could find out when we were talking to them, they said somebody complained. But when we went to everybody on that street, everybody signed on that letter that they wanted parking on it. So maybe somebody living 2 blocks, a block away, or somebody signed, we don't know. Okay. But we went to house, and we got everybody's signature. They're all in the favor of parking there.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for your question.
All right. Oh, no, that's it. Okay, so thank you very much for your delegation, and we'll do the same thing. We'll process it here right now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for your time.
So I'll move that delegation C3 be referred to staff for an item for information, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on that referral. That carries unanimously. Reports to council, item E1 was deferred, so it's back on the floor, and I have a referral motion. Ms. Bauer, if you could bring that up, please. Council, that's the E3. Go to E1, please. Yep. Council that the draft tenant relocation council possibly referred to staff for tenant protection to instead be considered with a new tenant protection bylaw with additional provisions as outlined within provincial policy manual tenant protection bylaws dated March 2025, as it may be appropriate for council to consider, seconded by Councillor Bailey. Is there any questions or discussion on that referral? Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, so at this point, would we be able to weigh in with the sort of provisions that we'd want to see, or would that just come back and then we would take a look at it?
If you have any questions, you may want to make an amendment if there's something specific you're looking for.
So I guess I'm, I do have a couple of them actually, and one is specific to the vulnerable tenant definition. Vulnerable tenants as tenants who are seniors age 55 or older, who receive a recognized disability pension or who qualify for a deep subsidy or rent geared to income housing, and to provide enhanced compensation for vulnerable tenants relocating to market rate housing of no less than 16 months rent regardless of tenure length. And the reason why this is important is that we have an aging population and many seniors living on a very limited income and often with significant physical limitations and minimal family support to help them. So finding a new home, packing up their belongings, and physically moving will be much more challenging than for a middle-aged professional with a network of support, which is definitely the definition that we have right now. Is there's no sort of differentiation. So that was the one that I would like to see in the bylaw.
That sounds like an amendment to the bylaw once we have the draft bylaw.
So should we just bring it back then?
Just wait until we have it.
Okay,
and
that
then you
was
can
my
tweak
original
the parameters
question.
in the
Okay.
bylaw. Yeah. Councillor Martins?
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to support this referral. I'm really happy to see this because tenant protection is important, and I appreciate that there will be more teeth with the bylaw. I'm just wondering if perhaps I could get some information more about the term additional provisions as outlined, if I can, Mr. Mayor, to staff, what sort of provisions might be considered when it's comes back as a draft bylaw?
Yes, through your worship to Council Martins. Staff's understanding is the mention of the provincial policy manual is that council had considered this item on March 9th, 2026 meeting, and around that time frame, the province had released its provincial policy manual with respect to this item. So their staff are in the process of reviewing that as well to see if there's any additional provisions that can be included in the event the referral is passed in the bylaw itself. However, at the previous council meeting, the policy itself, which is included at E1, did not make specific reference to that provincial policy manual.
Okay. And sorry, was there a time frame on when this would come back to council?
Through your worship to Councillor Martins, we would review the provincial policy manuals and essentially draft the bylaw and the offense notice. That would be working in collaboration with the bylaw enforcement department. So we do anticipate a few meetings prior to the bylaw coming forward for council's consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no discussion, to call the question on that. That carries unanimously. Item E2, I'll move it, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on E2? Seeing none, call the question on E2. That carries unanimously. Item E3, you're not going to move this just yet. Ms. Bauer, I'd like to propose a couple of amendments and then move the recommendation after that. Yeah, so that this is the process here, potentially, that council directs staff to change the proposed land use designations for the following areas in the draft Willoughby Transit Corridor Plan to Special Study Area, properties east of 202A Street, between 73A Avenue and 76th Avenue from Row House Townhouse, and properties south of 80th Avenue, north of 78th Avenue, between 200th Street and 202A, from high-density mixed use. That's the LEC site. I'll move that. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Bailey. Is there any discussion? I'll just speak to these a little bit. This is expanding the special study area in the Smith neighborhood plan somewhat for an area that does not have the necessary servicing to proceed at this time. And the second one is actually the LEC would be labeled a special study area, not committing to a specific plan within the OCP. Is there any discussion or questions? Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, can you, I know that we've seen special study area before. Can you just kind of define that a little bit and why it's important that it's a special study area?
Yeah, Mr. Carter.
Through your worship to Councillor Kunst, a special study area essentially would indicate that there's still further review that's going to be done or direction that is anticipated by council prior to a specific land use that is going to be designated.
And how long would it stay like a special study area, just until we change it?
Through your worship to Councillor Kunst, yes, until council gives us direction, the land use map would reflect special study area.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with metro, like it's all just township, right?
Through your worship to Councillor Kunst, at this time, I don't believe there's any metro approvals required for that specific area that's mentioned in the amendment.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on the first resolution. That carries unanimously, and so therefore the recommendation in the agenda is slightly modified to say undertake public engagement on the draft Willoughby Community Plan as amended. So seconder to that, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on the recommendation slightly amended? Okay, Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thank you for this. This is a big undertaking, and I appreciate the public engagement process. And I just had some questions around that through to mayor to staff with regards to this. There in these various plans, there are some land use and density assumptions, particularly around BRT. And I'm wondering in this if there's some contingencies that we build in to these plans if the BRT doesn't come through in the way that we believe it should, or if it's not approved in the way that it should be. I'm just wondering about how we plan for that potential.
Dear Worship, to Council Whitmarsh, you're correct to indicate that one item of concern that the proposed Langley Haney Place BRT service, it's at design stage and it hasn't received final funding approval for construction at this time. But however, the province also has not established minimum densities yet for transit-oriented areas for BRT. We are taking some assumptions into consideration for the provincial requirements for TOA designations. But also there's previous planning that was undertaken as a part of the 200 Street 2040 study. And then there were subsequent council directions to consider some of the land use designations that are before council and the policies with respect to references to TOAs as well. And essentially, if there is further updates and directions required, we would update council and seek those directions. But at this time, we are accommodating future transit-oriented development within this Willoughby Transit Corridor Plan.
Okay, thank you. What is the current estimated population of Willoughby? Do we know that approximate number today, and what is the build out expected to be?
Yes, to your worship, to Council Whitmarsh, I believe it's approximately 55,000 with a potential build out between 87,000 to 110,000. That's based on the planned densities and building topology. To further build on your previous question and my answer as well, a lot of the redevelopment or land use designations, the anticipated timelines are also approximately 20 to 25 years as well, and that's the build-out timeframe.
Right. So as we go to the public on this neighborhood plan updates, and to move from 55,000 to potentially as high as 110, so almost double or double the size and population they have currently there. There's obviously a lot of infrastructure needs to get to that number, roads, water, sewer, parks, schools, fire, etc. A long list. Is there some form of initial analysis that is done so the public kind of has that information as they look into give their feedback on this plan? Even if it's, I appreciate its initial sort of thinking as opposed to, I know it's not done over exactly the cost, but is there some sort of analysis on that?
Your worship, to Council Whitmarsh, by initial analysis, if that's reference to if there's anticipation of further infrastructure needs, yes, that's within the neighborhood plans themselves, whether that's further school park sites or further amenities required, that is anticipated, and within some of the policy items as well within the neighborhood plans.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Martins?
Thank you. If I can, through the chair to staff, if you could just speak a little bit more about what the public engagement will look like for this plan.
Through your worship, to Councilor Martins, we do have 2 public open houses scheduled in the event council does endorse us to proceed with public engagement. The first open house is on April 9th, and then the second would be on April 14th. And there would be an ability for the township to receive online feedback all the way up until the end of April. And that will be provided to council once we receive all the community engagement and feedback when we bring forward the bylaws for council's consideration.
Have there been any public engagement opportunities before now, if I can, through the chair to staff?
Yes.
Okay, and so what I'm looking at here is with that feedback taken into consideration.
Through your worship to Council Martin, there's some feedback taken into consideration, but at that time there wasn't specifically community plans or transit corridor plans in more detail for the public to provide further feedback on.
Okay, thank you. So I am supportive, generally speaking, of updating these plans. I just have some concerns that I want to mention while we're here today. The area between 200th and 204th Street, north of 84th, is planned for intensive residential development. But I'm not finding any institutional land set aside. And I'm wondering if staff could speak to where they propose schools to serve that population, or even a fire hall. I'm just mindful of, we're looking upwards of 110,000 people, and there's one fire hall at 72nd and one on the other side of the highway at 96. Just wondering about that infrastructure, and I'm mindful of the fact that we have yet to have a community center in that area. So if perhaps I could hear more about that, because the people moving into those buildings will need places for their children to go to school. They'll need emergency services. They will need community space. So can you identify where these institutional uses have been designated in the densest growth area in the plan?
Through your worship to Council Martins, can you just repeat the area specifically?
For sure. So between 200th and 204th, and then north of 84th. So when I'm looking at the shading, that's where the gradient gets really dark, indicating the highest density.
With your worship, Council Martins, yes, we have the specific area, and could you just repeat the specific items? With respect to fire halls, those usually are not indicated in land use plans themselves. That's a separate item, usually through a budget process and a consultation with the fire department. And then with respect to fire hall developments, that's not in neighborhood plans typically.
So generally, though, institutions would be designated, and I don't see any designated space for school in that area.
So I'm going to jump in here. So there's been no school provided as part of the Carboth neighborhood plan from the beginning. That's the Josette Danduran School that's been provided for that area. So when this comes back, we could certainly look at asking that the community plan and the neighborhood plan provide for additional school sites. There is language around finding additional school spaces through partnership in the district that's generally going to be required for 200th Street. That's outlined within the community plan draft. And you're asking a question that I think is a good one, but it's been that way since the beginning.
All right, but just because it's been that way since the beginning doesn't mean we shouldn't address it. That's one thing I have heard from residents in that area, or north or south of it, that there is a concern for no identified school spaces. The next question I do have is about the BRT station hubs. I remember in previous iterations, when I attended open houses, there was 3 hubs that they identified, if I recall, kind of along the corridor, and it seems we're up to 5. they were envisioning the hubs to have their own character and very specific to the neighborhood around that. So have we shifted from that design concept to just more functional, like bus stops? I'm just wondering what the shift is there, if I could through the mayor's staff.
Yes, to your worship, to Councillor Martins, what was indicated earlier is several land use maps. That item would get addressed through a development permit stage, and I believe there's development permit guidelines, character form, that are attached as well, that show the design, vision, and intent for some of the development that would occur near some of these stations.
Okay, all right, thank you. And I guess my final comment is with regards to the, going back to Carvolth again, and the traffic disaster of 202 from 88th to 86. I know we are underway, some improvements are being made to 86 itself, which is great to see. But I am concerned because we are going to have one of these hubs now at where the park and ride is, I guess, at Carvolth for BRT. And I'm just wondering if we've done traffic studies and if we've identified how we are going to handle the volume of traffic in that area. That's already a problem for us heading north-south there on 202.
Your worship, to Council Martin. So at this time, we are at a land use stage and a DP permit guideline. We would essentially also, if there's any further impacts on engineering servicing plans, which would include the infrastructure, potentially any traffic impact assessments that need to incur, that would trigger any further upgrades to infrastructure that would be reviewed.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I guess really at the heart of the matter, is it possible to improve 202 between 86th and 88th? Are we stuck with what we've got? Because there's pretty limited space on the sides of that.
Your worship, to Council Martin, staff can review that matter a bit further in detail and see if there's any opportunity there, unless council gives specific direction with respect to 202.
Okay, thank you very much. So those are my concerns. I just wanted to raise those. Again, I support this moving forward, and I support robust public feedback because this is a very big plan, and we want to ensure that we're getting it right. Thank you.
Yep, just to highlight, there was significant funding in the budget that you voted against that advanced many of those items specific to schools and infrastructure upgrades in that area that would not have moved forward without the budget approval. Councillor Richter?
Yes, thank you. I support public engagement, absolutely. I'm not certain though that I can support these plans when they return as bylaws, because basically we've taken 5 neighborhood plans for pretty dense areas and we're consolidating them into one. So I think we absolutely do need public engagement. That's why I'm supportive of it. And I hope that all those residents who helped us craft the neighborhood plans for the original 5 areas will pay attention. And I guess I do have a question, though, through you to staff. How will neighborhood-specific concerns, particularly around building height transitions, traffic impacts, and park access, be preserved with the consolidated corridor plan? Or maybe the question should be, will they?
Through your worship, to Councillor Richter, so in the exercise of consolidating several neighborhood plans, into one, there was a comprehensive review of each neighborhood plan to determine how to improve consistencies between the plan. So with respect to terminology, definitions, density calculations, and the plan objectives and the key land use policies, which had some of the corridor items, as you have mentioned, in them. So that was all reviewed in a comprehensive manner to ensure that when it's consolidated, that the intent of that was not missed.
Okay. I just want to echo the comments of both Councillor Whitmarsh and Councillor Martins have made with regards to infrastructure that's definitely going to be needed in this area, like schools and additional fire resources, clearly. Thank you.
Councilor Ferguson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been a lot of discussion. I think it's a good discussion. Certainly, many of those infrastructure and industrial uses with schools, parks, fire halls, police, future police hubs and things like that. I'm sure they'll be part of the future planning and budget. But I'm not sure if Mr. Cooner or Mr. Richardson wanted to comment on when the Willoughby plan was first put together, and there are a number of community plans. A number of the very things we were talking about, they were marked on a map, not necessarily in a direct address, but certainly marked on a map for future use and future consideration, if I may, through the chair.
Yes, through your worship, to Councillor Ferguson, the first OCP, I believe, was adopted in 1979, and then the Willoughby Community Plan itself was adopted in 1998.
And then future updates for the neighborhood.
There were several neighborhood plans, I think, between 1998 all the way up until 2025.
That's correct. And all the needs were certainly looked or marked on a map. But I did also want to say that not only has the Langley Township and their staff been busy with the residents for planning for the future, we have a North Langley liquid waste plant, which started off years and years ago, I imagine, servicing only maybe 10 to 20,000 people. They have an upgrade now for over 100,000 people in liquid waste and sewage and drainage uses for the future, and also preparing for liquid waste and drainage for the future. So they're working with our staff, Metro Vancouver, working with our staff. The staff is working with our own development teams and regional or planners. Also, there is upgrade for water for those people. There has to be a tap going on for both residential, commercial, industrial, and fire use. That is being planned for the future of hundreds of thousands of people in the future. And of course, we're looking and working towards parks, not metro or local, and community centers, pools, but all that will be part of the budget process, which I'm looking forward to. And it's been a good discussion today, but planning for the future it is important, and that's why we have a number of I guess, playing fields for kids, hockey rinks for kids, 3,000, I guess, kids, students I'm talking about in the area of a new high school and a middle school. So there's a number of things ongoing, and if I missed things, I'm sure I've missed a few things. Oh, yeah, nobody knew that we were going to put a fire hall 5 on 200th Street by the Horn Pit. Nobody knew that. That was the decision made, and I compliment, because I wasn't really part of that decision, I just asked a lot of questions. Decision made by the fire people, or fire hall people, or professional people. And now, the next halls, or many of the future halls, a decision will be made on location, and either it'll be owned land, we'll have land which we can buy, or we can use provincial or federal land. Anyway, those are my points, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, and I'm excited to see these plans come to us, and I appreciate staff putting all the time and effort into these, and looking forward to hearing the feedback as we move forward, because I know a lot of this incorporated the feedback that we heard at not only the LEC 2040, but the 200 Street 2040, these planning exercises that have been ongoing now for an entire term. I'm sure all fed in, and when reading the report, I can see the merits there, and recognizing the challenge that it's going to be moving forward to secure institutional lands based on the previous models that have been used, because looking at these higher density areas, there's not too many 5-acre sites left for a school and 5 acres for a park, right? And so I'm challenged sometimes when I hear the line of questioning or the train of thought from folks who aren't willing to spend the money to invest in these necessary pieces of infrastructure and vote against budgets that actually build this infrastructure, then say that we're going to need it when, correct, we probably needed these pieces of infrastructure a few years ago when these folks started to first move in. So that's totally fine. That's within their prerogative. But the reality is I'm excited to see language embedded in the plan. So I thank staff around exploring new types of schools. And I guess my question through yourself, your worship, to staff would be in the policy, it highlighted the ongoing conversations with the school district around a new sort of typology of schools. And I'm just wondering if we can have any insight to how those conversations are going so far.
Yes, to your worship, to Councillor Pratt, there's still ongoing discussions with the school district with respect to the future of schools within these neighborhood plans. And I think what is being referenced is urban schools. So some of the urban school models that have been used by other municipalities, like I believe the city of Vancouver, where it's schools are built in podiums in plazas, where, for example, there's high density references, but depending on the development application in the future, there could be an opportunity to have a school in one of the podiums there as well.
Thank you. And then the sort of, if I remember correctly, when reading the plan and the report, it talked about the percentage of Willoughby that's complete versus incomplete. And I believe it was in the realm of 53 or 55%, if I remember correctly. And I'm just wondering if staff can comment on which of the neighborhoods are, I mean, still incomplete. We can look at a map and see, but within the Willoughby Transit Corridor portion of these updated plans, which would include, I believe, the former plans of Jericho, Latimer, I believe is Routley included in those, and then we have Carvolt as well. Obviously, notwithstanding some of the employment lands to the west of 200th Street, approximately how complete is the Willoughby Transit Corridor? Do we have an idea of that at this point?
To your worship, to Councillor Pratt, is the question more which neighborhood plan that's been consolidated the most built out or most complete? Is that?
Yes, so the Willoughby Transit Corridor plan, approximately how built out is that in terms of the residential density that we're expecting?
Councillor Pratt, we have about 40 to 45% capacity in the corridor. And different neighborhoods obviously have different build-outs. Southwest Gordon, just to the north of us, it's basically 99% built out. Roughly also 95% in Routley. As you mentioned, West Carvolve, it is basically not built out because it is currently designated as employment lands, but that area is under special study area, and we'll definitely look at the potential of locating community facilities and potential school sites.
Great, thank you very much. And then my final question regarding the BRT line, the proposed BRT line. In the 200 Street 2040 plan, as Councillor Martins highlighted, there were the 3 hubs that were sort of discussed as a potential, let's call it, description of each of these neighborhoods. Have we expanded those hubs to all stations along the BRT line, or are there simply those 3 remaining hubs at the Gateway, at the LEC, and then I believe down at around 72nd? Or are we waiting, for example, for the Willowbrook community planning process to fully designate that as a BRT hub? And then I believe Carvolth itself, as we move off of 200th Street, wasn't necessarily included in the Gateway. I'm just wondering if we could have some clarification on that.
Through your worship to Councillor Pratt, originally there were 3 opening day stations planned, and we did an exercise around destination development. It's not just land use and zoning. What are these places going to be? So now we have 5 identified stations. Each one has the ability and the intent is to become a transit hub. The difference will be around scale. given the amount of land area that's available, that could come into play. But the intent is that they would develop their own unique personality, identity as a destination. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate that.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I'm glad to hear everyone's talking about fire halls. Well, they didn't talk about them before this term, it seems like, because this fire hall I identified when I was doing a tour with the previous fire chief as dangerous and in the wrong place. And to say that they're not looking at relocating and building a better hall, very much like Hall 5, I hope. I'm really glad to hear that everyone's going to support about $50 million plus to build a new fire hall that will better serve both Willoughby and Walnut Grove, and especially Highway 1. So, people are looking at not only moving this hall, but building a new one because it is in such bad condition. It's in violation until the new administration came in. The diesel extraction system didn't even reach the back doors, which is in gross violation of WorkSafe BC's OH&S reg. And let's not forget about the sinkhole that made it so you couldn't drive through the drive-through bays, and it is still.
Councillor Bailey, we could certainly get into that, but we're on the community
Oh, well,
plan, neighborhood plan updates.
Your worship,
transit
fire
corridor
halls
will-
came up, and I'm really glad to hear that all of a sudden everyone's looking at new fire halls, because it was sure not done for a long time.
Okay, go ahead. I think we're on Willoughby Community Neighborhood Plan updates. We certainly all appreciate the state that Hall 8 has been in for a number of years. I certainly appreciate getting this to this stage. I understand the volume of work in consolidating neighborhood plans that evolved over a 20-year period down into a revised document that focuses a lot on the transit corridor and some of the things that have been going on with the Mayor's Council and Transport 2050 and Metro Vancouver. And consolidating that planning into one document, I think, is extremely valuable. Will help deal with conflicting standards, something as simple as a greenway width that were different in different plans as they had evolved over a period of time, creating, I think, some challenges for the cost of the development industry and so on. And so for me, it's been extremely important to see this work conclude to the point that a West Willoughby transit corridor plan is consistent, has the same set of designations and goals centered around that differentiation for creating those destinations, as was mentioned by staff. I will admit that it is challenging on occasion to have to listen to some of these speeches, knowing the information that I know around people's voting records, completely inconsistent with the speeches they're not making. I attempted to get a fire hall in Carville last term. That was voted down. I've been bringing up the likelihood of the need for more flexibility around, what schools are going to look like going into the future with the lack of an ability to find, let alone afford, 10 acres for school sites, when the district administration staff tell me that the answer will be no, period. Now, of course, we're hearing different things when they're 6 months away from answering for that. And so I think there's a number of things that we'll need to explore over the coming months around some of this hypocrisy, I think, is becoming to emerge, that you vote against staffing a fire hall while suggesting that you care about fire halls. But I think for today, we're focused on this. This is great work heading for public consultation and really a big step forward for addressing a number of the issues related to Willoughby, a number of issues related to modernizing it and making it more prepared for the future to address a number of the challenges I think that we're going to be facing in the years ahead. With that, I'm going to call the question on E3. Yeah, I'm calling the question, Councilor Martins. What is your point of order?
Yeah, the reason I had my mic pushed here was just to have what you're voting on back on the screen, because it's been, that would just be helpful.
Yeah, Ms. Bauer, you could bring it back up, please. All right, so I'll be called to question on that. Anybody needs to take a moment before they vote? That carries unanimously. Item F1, move that. I'll move that, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on F1? Councillor Martins? Or Councillor Whitmarsh, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Just, this is something that I am supportive of this, but I wanted to ask a question with regards to the volunteer amenity contribution through your worship to staff. I noticed that this one has a voluntary contribution of 2.2 million, and I'm just wondering what the process is to calculate that. Is there a formula that we use to determine this amount of money paid in this? Because it's, you know, again, the ACC bylaw has not passed, and I appreciate that. But this is different. This is a different number than would have been there if that had passed. So I'm just wondering what the process is, or the formula that is done to calculate the voluntary contribution.
Through your worship to Councillor Whitmarsh, the voluntary amenity contribution is the policy that's being used is the interim policy regarding community amenity contributions. And that is a discussion that occurs at a staffing level, and the proponent volunteers an amount. There is never going to be a dollar for dollar on every application. If there's differences in the applications of how many units being proposed, what if there's a plan amendment, and there's any bonus density attached as well. As indicated in the previous meetings, the ACC bylaw does not cover bonus density items. That with respect to bonus density, we would be relying on the interim policy regarding community amenity contributions. That's, I believe, policy number 07-170. Here before you, the proponent is seeking a plan amendment.
Okay, so the amount, the voluntary contribution is then suggested by the proponent, and then staff either agrees or disagrees with the suggested amount. Is that sort of how it goes?
To your worship, to Councillor Whitmarsh, the proponent, in line with the policy itself, volunteers an amount, and that amount is then put in the report to council. And there's some discussions occurred with respect to the amount, and then that's brought forward via report to council and indicated in that report.
Okay, thank you. A second question I had through your worship of staff was in the document, it talks about 14 development prerequisites, one of them being to secure a joint elementary school and neighborhood park site. Is that, is there been a change in what we do around neighborhood elementary school and neighborhood park sites, sort of securing that together? It talks about being jointly secured. You know, being away for 3 years off council, I know we did it maybe differently back then. I just wondering if there's an update on this expectation that we have a secured joint elementary school and neighborhood park site.
To your worship, to Councillor Whitmarsh, that's a requirement within the Smith neighborhood plan. So in any neighborhood plan, if there's a specific requirement for joint elementary school and neighborhood park site, that requirement would need to be satisfied, or the proponent would need to request that that requirement be deleted or waived.
Okay, so those are neighborhood dependent and not a township wide policy. It's actually based on the neighborhood that they specifically are in.
To your worship, to Councillor Whitmarsh, specifically, this item is within this neighborhood plan. Majority of the neighborhood plans do have a policy or requirement to secure a joint elementary school and neighborhood park site. However, certain plans already have that joint elementary school and neighborhood park site identified. For example, the Brookswood neighborhood plan, council did give direction to say that the interpretation is that since it's been identified, it's secured, and that is not a development prerequisite. However, in the Smith neighborhood plan, the policy reads as indicated in the paragraph 1 there, as mentioned by you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I'm excited to support this one. I think the application looks good, but probably more than anything, I'm excited that they took advantage of the policy in the neighborhood plan that allows for greater density in exchange for commercial use, because I think that one thing that most folks can agree on is that Willoughby has a lot of homes, but there's probably not quite enough commercial serving those homes. So I'm pleased to see that as part of this application.
Councilor Martins?
Sorry, no.
All right, Ms. Bauer, if you could bring up my two amendments, please. You can present them together as well. They can go together. All right, so I'll move that development prerequisite be removed, all subsequent conditions renumbered, and along with that, an amendment to address this within the Smith Neighborhood Plan, item number 2, that bylaw, the amendment bylaw add this paragraph, amending section 11.2.1 to add the sentence that this prerequisite does not apply to lands in 7A and 7B, north of 76th and east of 208th Street. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Pratt. So this amendment does deal with the fact that we have a unique, challenging situation in the Smith Neighborhood Plan, that this neighborhood plan is actually provided for a high school and middle school and a 20-acre park site, school park site for that development that is currently under construction from the school district and the Ministry of Infrastructure. So the challenge being that it's not necessarily going to be located any further in that portion of the Smith Neighborhood Plan, while still recognizing that it is a prerequisite for the remainder of the plan. This is a bit challenging in the sense that, you know, this plan is already providing for a very significant institutional and school use. And this is also a bit of a laggard in that in some of the other plans, the open designation of schools and park sites like in Brookswood does allow for development to proceed, knowing that those sites are secured. This is a bit not quite done fully, completely in some of the undeveloped areas of Willoughby, something we're still working on. I believe, Mr. Cooner, that exists in Williams, but not yet in Smith. So Smith is something that is still behind a little bit in regards to that. This is moving it in the direction of cleaning that up or making that more consistent with a lot of other plans, and also providing certainty to people in this area. And this will run concurrently with the public hearing, and look forward to any feedback that there may be on this amendment. Any discussion or questions? Councilor Whitmarsh.
Yes, you went quickly there. So in the, one of the first development prerequisite is the elementary school and neighborhood park site, and you're asking to remove that.
That's correct.
And that is because if I tried to stay up with you, that there is a middle school, high school being developed in this neighborhood, and therefore there's no need for an elementary school?
No, that's not what I said. What I said was it's not going to go on the east side of 208th Street. That's been clear, I think, for some period of time. So now that the east side of 208th Street is provided for a high school and middle school, allow the east side to proceed while the remainder of the Smith Neighborhood Plan is brought up to date with the other plans that openly identify where these schools will go. It won't be located on the east side of 208th Street in any event.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Councilor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I appreciate the amendment, and looking at the updated Smith land use plan with the pocket parks as well as the community park there. We'll still have parks there in Smith, and with the clause going into the new updated Willoughby community plan regarding different typologies, different sort of ways we can build elementary schools, I hold out hope that the ministry and the district and the township will come up with innovative solutions for every community and neighborhood. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Smith becomes moving forward, and having these pocket parks here, having the Greenway, having Smith View, all these different fantastic parks nearby is going to be a really beautiful part of a really exciting neighborhood once it does start to really build out.
Right, seeing no discussion, call the question on that amendment. That carries with Councillor Martins, Councillor Richter opposed. Okay, so is there any other discussion on F1 as amended? Councillor Richter?
Yeah, if it's for first and second, it means it's going for a public hearing. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And when will the public hearing be held?
Mr. Cooner, will you get that scheduled for April 13th?
That is correct.
So it's April 13th. Okay, I'm quite happy to send this for public hearing. I'm not convinced that it's something that I will support at third, because there's some pretty big things in it that I query, but I want to hear what the public has to say. Thank you.
No discussion. I'll call the question on F1 as amended. That carries unanimously. Bylaws for third reading, H1 was deferred. It's now back on the floor. Does anybody have any questions or just concerns about H1? Councilor Martins?
Thank you. So initially, I voted in favor of having staff process the application. I want to expand on why today I don't support this. When the application came forward, I supported giving it due process, allowing staff to prepare the bylaw and the public hearing to proceed. Since then, 3 things have changed. First, the Fraser Highway Employment Lands process has concluded, and this site falls outside the planned boundary. The deferral was specifically to await that process, and the result does not support this application. Second, Council has directed the development of a terms of reference for a comprehensive rural plan update. This site falls within the rural plan, so the appropriate way to address future land use here is through the update, not through a site-specific amendment. Third, the applicant still has no development proposal, no plan, no building, no defined use. They have told us they have not 100% decided what to build. I cannot support amending the OCP, the rural plan, and initiating a Metro Vancouver RGS amendment for a property where the owner does not know what they want to do with it. So through the mayor to staff, has the township submitted a type 2 RGS amendment application to Metro Vancouver for this property?
No, it has not.
No, okay. And, okay, and then I guess I would just say, has anything in the policy framework changed since the July 2024 staff assessment that found, it was report 24144, found this application inconsistent with the regional growth strategy, the OCP, and the rural plan? Or do those concerns still remain?
To your worship, to Councilor Martins, those specific items, staff's position would remain the same.
Okay, thank you. I will not be supporting this.
Councilor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have, I guess, some of the similar concerns that this is a property that there is no plans for what is going to happen there. They have no proposal of what that might look like, and yet there is an amendment, an OCP amendment being asked for. It goes against the recommendations of staff, and it seems to me that when we're looking at a site-specific OC amendment like this for a single property outside of the relevant area plan, with no development proposal, against staff recommendations, it's I think what we have at times called speculative spot zoning. And I don't think that's a practice that this council has supported in the past, and I'm not sure we want to support it at this point either. And so I won't be supporting this.
Councilor Richter?
Well, I opposed this application in July of 2024, and I oppose it again now. Staff recommended against it. The site is outside the employment land study area, and they have no development plan. So I kind of agree with what Councillor Whitmarsh just said. Why is this spot zoning even being considered? Well, I'd like to ask a question, because the other thing is with this application, it's virtually identical to another one, the Levitt Holdings expansion that came through, I think it was the last council, and that was defeated by council at third reading in 2018 on the same policy basis. So is there like some significant difference between this application and what happened with and the Levitt Holdings application?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, we would have to review that, and if it's not mentioned in the report itself, we would have to then see what that was proposed at the time, what's being proposed by this proponent, and advise council.
Okay, and also I'm worried about a potential precedent that if this particular site-specific amendment is approved, what is the township's position going to be for property owners of similar sites outside the employment lands designation on Fraser Highway.
Dear Worship, to Councillor Richter, the staff position was outlined in the report. However, if council were to grant this third reading, as you indicated, that would potentially be used as a precedent moving forward for proponents that are in the similar neighborhood or properties meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, through the mayor to staff, if this goes through, does this have the potential for this property owner to make this like a truck parking? Or do they need a temporary use permit would they have to apply for that?
Dear Worship, to Councillor Kunst, council would be granting third reading and the referrals would be made to Metro Vancouver. The zone would not be in place. However, in the event Metro Vancouver the board does grant approval, and then it comes before council for final adoption once the zone has been granted its industrial uses. So within industrial uses, once they do have the zone, there could be an ability to park semi trucks and trailers.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Bauer, if you could bring up my referral motion, please. Yeah, I'm going to move that council refer H1 back to staff to work with the proponent on a potential land use proposal more consistent with low impact principles outlined within the Fraser Highway Employment Lands Reference Plan, improved sensitivity to adjacent residential rural uses, and a review of the regional context of this area of Fraser Highway, seconded by Councillor Rinn. I think here largely agree with a lot of the comments. I also don't support H1 as presented to council, but I think there's no harm in continuing the conversation and seeing what it is they're actually trying to do there, which I agree, it's not quite 100% clear. So certainly it is adjacent to an existing industrial use. Is that true, Mr. Richardson?
Through worship, yeah, to a designated industrial use, your worship.
Yeah, so there is, I think, some need, I think, to have staff continue the conversation, but generally, yes, I also agree. I'm also not supportive, but this referral will continue the conversation, which may go nowhere. Is there any other questions or discussion about this referral? Seeing none, call the question on this referral. This carries. Councillor Kunz, Councillor Richter opposed. Bylaws for first, second, third reading and final adoption. Item I1. So I'm going to move, Ms. Bauer, maybe you can just bring them all up. Hopefully this will move quickly. Bring up the process for I1, which would allow for some amendments.
Well, to allow for amendments, council would give it first, second, and third
Yeah,
reading,
so
and then amend it.
You could,
So you want
if you
that?
could put that up, please. Yeah, there we are. The council give first, second, third reading to Township of Langley zoning bylaw 1987, number 20, amendment bylaw 6209. I'll move that. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on giving it three readings? Seeing none, no, just is on the three readings, and then there are some amendments coming. I'm just going to move straight to the amendments, actually. So I'm going to move the first amendment. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Rinn. Ms. Bauer, if you could show both amendments, please. Is there any discussion on the amendment? So the first amendment, locations 1 and 2, 96th Avenue, both locations north of Highway 1 are removed with subsequent locations numbered, and the second amendment moved together so that the distance of 200 meters indicated on map A, attachment A, and outlined be changed to 400 meters. So I've moved this jointly, seconded by Councillor Rinn. Is there any discussion here? I think this is removing the locations in Walnut Grove and focusing on the transit corridor that's been outlined here for us today, heading for public consultation, and expanding the 200 meters to be 400 meters consistent with the neighborhood, the community planning. So Councillor Richter, go ahead on the amendments.
Yeah, okay, these are pretty substantive amendments to what's in front of us. It would have been nice if we got it before arriving right now in this meeting. And so, no, I'm not supporting it. These amendments should have been circulated to council ahead of time to allow us to proceed with proper due diligence in our consideration before giving it first, second, third, and now final adoption. So I'm opposed.
All right, Councillor Martins?
Yeah, Just looking at the First Amendment, so you're removing any access to BRT north of Highway 1, south of the river.
There would be no parking reductions north of Highway 1. That's correct.
Okay, so the stops are remaining, but there's no parking there.
Mr. Kooner, maybe
yeah,
you can
just-
clarify that
thank
this
you.
has got nothing to do with BRT itself. This has to do with potential locations for BRT.
That is correct, Your Worship. These are zoning bylaw amendments before council. This is with respect to parking requirements with lands that are close proximity to bus rapid transit parking.
Okay, so we're not removing parking, we're not removing a BRT stop. We're simply, it's just the reductions.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, so in your
Oh, sorry. Yes, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
okay. The distance 200 meters indicated on map attachment A be changed to 400 meters. Can you just tell me, because I have not had time to, what's the significance of that?
Mr. Kooner?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Kunst, the original notice of motion and direction provided 200 meters as the radius of parking reductions that would apply to lands. So this amendment would essentially increase that radius to 400 meters, meaning more lands within that radius now would be able to, in the event this bylaw is given final adoption, be able to apply for reductions of parking, one-bedroom units.
Okay, so we're going from 200 to 400, and only in those locations, 96, 199, 96, and 201?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Kunz, no, my understanding is that the
Because I don't
first,
see map, and I don't see the
So
map in front of
it-
me. This is a problem when you just get these amendments sort of like in front of us.
so at I-1, the report to council there, page 5 has the map. So the first amendment is essentially deleting the radius on the map.
So, okay, so how I understand it is then there will be less parking for one bedrooms, but a bigger radius, right?
So
It's the same amount of parking, but in a bigger radius?
So the first amendment deletes the radius for allowing the parking reduction, so no parking reduction would be allowed once the amendment number 1 is passed. Number 2 increases the distance in the remaining areas, so from 200 to 400, which will allow more properties to apply for a parking reduction that have one-bedroom suites during redevelopment.
Okay, and do you know how many parking, I understand it's like 9 right now. What would be do we know how many less parking stalls that we would be sort of committing to?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Kunz, that scenario within the report 9 was a rough estimate on a development.
Yeah.
So that was per a project, so that would still apply. It just means more properties would be able to fall under that reduction, under that bylaw.
Okay, so we're going to give it third reading, which means that it's going to come back, and at that point, would people be able to still weigh in with their concerns if they had any?
To Your Worship, to Councillor Kunz, there is a motion also on the table. It seems it's on the screen as well for final adoption. So all 4 readings would be considered today. There could be an option if council does decide to grant 3 readings and then defer final adoption. However, right now that it seems as if all 4 readings would be taking place.
Okay, so could we defer this to the next meeting so there's a little more time to, or, I mean, I guess I would be asking the mayor.
Yeah, if you wish to move deferral, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, I would wish to move deferral just to give us a little more time. These are, I think, pretty significant, like for the future. So the one thing that we do hear a lot about is parking, and I just want to make sure we get it right. And just maybe one more meeting would give us a little more
Is there
time.
a seconder deferral? Seconded by Councillor Richter. Yeah. Is there any more discussion on deferral? Seeing none, call the question on deferral. referral is defeated. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Rent, Mayor Woodward opposed. Is there any other discussion on the amendment to third reading? Nope, seeing none, I'll call a question on that amendment. That carries. Councillor Coons, Councillor Richter opposed. Is there any more discussion on third reading as amended? Yeah, Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yes, I had a question around the reason for the reduction on only one-bedroom units, and why is it not considered for other sized units?
Yeah, that was, I think, debated a little bit when the notice of motion was done. I think the rationale for the motion to be restricted to one bedrooms is to recognize that more people live in 2 and 3 bedroom apartments and not reducing parking for those, to address the concerns that we think are out there, that if we're going to be seeing 2 and 3 bedroom units, that those are going to have more people in them with more vehicles, where there's been a lot of studies, including our own and including Metro Vancouver's, that are consistent with this reduction that are outlined in our own parking strategy, but also a number of studies and work that's been going on in Metro Vancouver.
So what is the when it talks about one-bedroom units, what is the, or the reduction, sorry, what is the current allotment for parking?
1.5 stall
For a
any
one-bedroom?
Any one bedroom, any apartment, and then 1 stall per studio.
So a one-bedroom unit right now has 1.5 stalls per.
And if you're within future projected close proximity, less than that 5-minute walk to a future BRT station, it'll be reduced by that percentage.
Okay, so this would reduce it to about 1.25 or something like that.
Mr. Cunard?
I don't have the,
it's quite
I'm
that
just
far, but
using my
do the
head.
math for us.
Maybe
I believe it's
1.3.
1.35.
1.35, okay. Well, okay. All right, thank you.
Seeing no other discussion, I'll call the question on third reading as amended. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. I'll move that council give final reading as amended, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on final reading? Yeah, Councillor Pratt.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a step in the right direction to make sure that the BRT project is shown to be a serious undertaking by the township. I think the reality is that folks who will look to be moving into the township in years ahead in either studios or one bedroom will enjoy having the option. And I live in a condo, and I know the parking challenges that exist for people who live in more than one bedroom units, but I'm excited about this step, and I think it's an exciting thing that is really a policy question, and it maybe is getting into the weeds a little bit. And so getting excited about something like that might not be for everybody, but I'm looking forward to what this will mean for the township in the years ahead.
All right, seeing no discussion, I'll call a question on final adoption. That carries. Councillor Richter opposed. Take a 10-minute recess and come back at 3:30.
The gum so hard it tastes like nasty. Oh, I thought people would leave. Why? Items been voted on, I can tell.
All right, so we'll get back underway for, let's see, where are we? Bylaws for final adoption, Langley 2026-2030 5-year financial plan, bylaw number 6207, 6206. I'll move it, seconded by Councillor Wren. Is there any questions or discussion on J1? Councillor Pratt?
Yeah, I actually a first question, just a procedural one, I guess, not quite procedural. I noticed in the clerk's note, we're discussing a 3.97 increase as opposed to a 3.98. And it mentions that it was due to changes obviously to operating. And please refresh my memory of why there's now the 0.01 difference.
To your worship, to Councillor Pratt, the difference is with respect to the amendment that was made to the Langley 2026 to 2035 year financial plan bylaw, and that amendment resulted in a savings of 0.01%.
And this was the correction to the fire terminology, is that correct?
To your worship, to Councillor Pratt, this was with respect to the start date of the fire life safety educator, which resulted in savings.
Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm glad actually that Councillor Pratt raised that question, because one of the questions I had was there were some changes made to Schedule B, and I'm wondering what was the mechanism that resulted in those changes? Was there a council resolution last meeting to change Schedule B?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, just a point of clarification. Are you indicating on J1 that there's a schedule that has changed? Or I don't know.
Well, yeah, in the actual bylaw, I believe it's the one that has the, just a sec, let me flip to it. H1. We're on J1 right now?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, I think in one of the readings we had the Schedule B, which is showing in my bylaw package here is page 5 of J1. So did those numbers change from the last meeting?
To your worship, to Councillor Richter, all the budget changes were accepted last meeting. If were there any further changes related to amendments, those changes have been made.
Okay, so those changes have been identified in the Schedule B then? Under things like capital plan and total plan revenue and total plan expenditures?
Dear Worship Council Rector, those items were all approved last meeting. Any changes with respect to one of the amendments I was referred to in the operating, those changes were implemented and then brought forward for final.
Okay, so they were implemented based on the changes that were approved last meeting.
Dear Worship to Councillor Richter, based on the amendments that were made last meeting.
Okay, so we never actually had a motion to amend Schedule B. We just had motions to amend the budget, but that's resulted now in amendments to Schedule B. Am I understanding that correctly?
Dear Worship to Councillor Richter, if any changes were required to Schedule B, but I don't believe there was any changes to Schedule B itself that was approved.
Okay.
And I believe that was the 5-year financial projections, correct?
Yeah. Well, that's that page 5, I think it is. Yeah, page 5.
So just one more point of clarification on that. Now I'm understanding the question a bit better. The only change would be that the 3.97% for that year, but the subsequent year that projections have not changed.
Okay, but the original budget had a 3.98, didn't it? Now it's down to 3.97?
That is correct.
Okay.
Councillor Pratt?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. I didn't expect to be speaking so soon. I assumed there would be other comments made, but as this is final adoption of the last budget of the term, I thought it was an exciting moment to take stock of where we were at the start of the term, and I think where we're headed after this 4 years. And I think it's fantastic to be able to drive around town on roads that are being finished and seeing amenities that are being nearly completed and things that quite frankly weren't even contemplated years ago, which are really exciting additions to the community. And again, it's been an interesting discussion over the last few weeks as we've debated this budget, hearing about people's concern about forward projections and what that might mean. And meanwhile, the same folks have had no problem approving tax increases in previous years that were over the previous year's projections. No issues there. And we've heard about that, borrowing to build is not a plan. Well, I frankly find it challenging because also keeping taxes artificially low and not investing in infrastructure and voting no and no and no again also isn't a plan. And so it's frankly easy, I think, to be sitting in positions of being able to vote no against a budget that, quite frankly, if even one person had also voted no, one more person had also voted no, every single expenditure that the township would be making over the next year would technically be illegal. Any investment that's being made over the next year was approved in this budget. And it's challenging, again, to hear commentary around, well, this infrastructure is going to be needed or that infrastructure is going to be needed. Well, the difficult decision is saying yes to actually building it and taking the hit that might come for doing that. And it's easy to, again, have suggested comments and questions and being able to have the time and the research done in order to ask those questions as opposed to coming up with solutions and actually making challenging decisions at budget time, saying, yes, I would like to take this out, or I'd like to add this in because I think this is a priority for me and the community, but I think this should be taken out. And then you get voted down, and that sucks. I was there for many years getting voted down, and I kept trying and I kept plugging away, and a few of my, priorities have successfully seen the light of day, and I think that's great. That's democracy. So I'm excited about it because, again, a lot of investment in this budget, a lot of fantastic things, and things that I believe both should have been done a long time ago. Then we wouldn't be dealing with them now. And I also think that things that are being invested in this budget are going to set us up for an amazing future. And I look forward to, at the very least, seeing those projects finished and seeing the results and seeing the kids that are going to use these facilities and seeing the people who aren't going to have to wait on a goat trail on 208 anymore. So thank you, I almost said Mr. Speaker. It's almost like I had notes prepared. Almost like I did.
Councillor Whitmers?
Yeah, thank you. I just had a question through your worship to staff. was, I'm just going back, and I think Councillor Richter asked the question about the Schedule B and the numbers, and I'm looking at the readings from March 9th and then March 23rd, the two times that we've looked at the at our 5-year financial plan. And I noticed the transfer from prior year surplus, when we looked at it at March 9th to compared to March 23rd, there's a $471,000 difference. And I'm just wondering I mean, I didn't pick up on it, I guess, on March 23rd, that difference, but I'm wondering what that difference is from March 9th. Transfer for prior year surplus was put at $3.9 million. And then in March 23rd, it was at $4.4 million, so it's a $471,000 difference. I'm wondering if there's an answer to what that difference is.
Mr. Cooner, I think that's largely the additional funding for servicing for the washrooms addition at Ulrich Grove Athletic Park.
I think that is correct. That relates specifically to
One or two other smaller items.
a capital budget item that was done at the March
We can get that
23rd meeting.
confirmed, but I think that sounds like what it was.
So is that the cost, is that the full cost of that washroom facility, or is that a portion of it?
That was a project to begin the servicing required for that project.
Servicing, okay. So that's not the project itself, it's the servicing for the project, is that correct?
Yeah, there is no project if it's not serviced.
And just to confirm, I just wanted a confirmation, was the number you indicated 425,000?
471 was
That would have been that item, plus I think there was one or two smaller items.
And then there was also a transfer from capital surplus, which was also $200,000 different from, from March 3rd to March March 9th to March 23rd.
That may have been the traffic calming item. Yeah, seeing nods.
To your worship, to Councillor Whitmarsh, potentially because there were several amendments made, and some of those amendments related to operating surplus as a funding source, which would then change some of the transfers to reserves. That would be a specific indication of why that occurred. And I believe that was a traffic calming item.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think this is, I appreciate the comments made by Councillor Pratt. I don't think making a decision for or against a budget is an easy decision. To characterize it as such, I think, is inaccurate. These are difficult decisions. They're difficult decisions to make. For 8 years that I was on council previous, I voted in support of every one of those budgets for 8 years. And this one, it's not that there's not good things in the budget. There's a lot of good things in the budget. And I support those good things that are in the budget. Certainly support those things that build for safety in our community and build safer and stronger communities. I'm very supportive of that. What I am concerned about, and where my concern is not in what is the immediate and the benefit that we'll gain in the immediate. I enjoy driving on the new roads just as much as anybody else does. I am concerned about the long-term future, and I am concerned about the lack of a solid debt management plan, and tried to bring that at last meeting, and we have a changed item that is different than what was proposed. I am concerned about that and want to have that kind of plan in place and how we're managing that going forward. I appreciate that good things cost money, and we all want good things. And so my concern is not that. My concern is that I want to see us invest in our community for the long term, not just for 1 year, or 2 years, or 3, but for 5, 10, 15, and 20 years. That's the responsibility of council members. Not just to think about what's nice for 1 or 2 years, not what might be a great project that might be good in certain years and get people behind us, but in fact, what do we do that puts us in a stable position for the long run, the long term? I support many of the facilities that are coming online. I support the widening of roads that are happening right now. I'm not opposed to those things. And anyone who says that I'm opposed to those things is simply inaccurate. Those are wrong. My concern is whether we're able to invest in it for the long haul. Our reserves are a concern for me. They are a safety net for building future fire halls, future infrastructure, future emergency responses. And I want to see us continue to do that. The plan that we have here has borrowed a significant amount from our reserves. And with no discussion or solid plan, public plan of how we're going to pay that back on our reserves. We've used our reserves to keep our tax rates low, which is great. I'm not opposed to low taxes, but I'm also not opposed to taxing at the appropriate rate for the growth of our community. So I've asked for the long-term fiscal responsibility plan. That didn't quite happen the way that I had hoped it would. I'm not here to stop spending. I've never been wanting to stop spending, as much as that might be the characterization of myself. It's not the case. I'm not here to stop spending. I'm here to see this community grow and do what's best for our community. But the way that we're doing it right now, and at the expense we're doing it, and the inability for us to have good discussions around the table early on, but instead have to make decisions very quickly on this budget, have made it so that this year, at this time, for this budget this year, I cannot support it. It does not mean I will not support future budgets, and it does not mean I won't support future growth, because I'm all about that. And any comments made are contrary to the truth. And so for this day, I will not be supporting this bylaw.
Councillor Kunst?
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate all the comments at the table, even the ones that I don't agree with, but it's all good. I've said before, one of the most important decisions that we make here at the table is the budget, how we spend taxpayers' money on the myriad of things our community needs. In the last meeting, I shared my concerns about the budget process, particularly transparency. How we are using reserves and the number of items listed in critical and unfunded in this budget. Sidewalks, culverts, bridges, just to name a few. The reason I brought up 40th Avenue is because it's a clear example of what happens when items sit in the critical category for too long. I understand it's really easy to blame things on previous councils, as we have a tendency to do at this table. But this particular item was identified in 2021, placed in the budget unfunded in 2022. So that was, a few of us that were in that term. It remained unfunded in 2023 and again in 2024 until it failed in the same year, just a few short months later. So let's stop pointing to previous councils, because that's what happened on our watch. Let's recognize that we need to take care of these seemingly small budget items because they have a huge impact on our residents if we don't. I recognize the township is growing rapidly and we need to keep up with the infrastructure. At the same time, we have new schools coming online, families in Willoughby, Brookswood, and Aldergrove walking their children to school along roads that lack safe sidewalks, as well as infrastructure that's aging faster than we are replacing it. I'm concerned our reserves are being drawn down in a way that will leave future councils with fewer options to address the very infrastructure gaps I'm raising tonight. Finally, I'd like to address our first responders in our community. Voting against this budget is not voting against you. It's voting for a financial framework that can sustain the investments that you need, not just this year, but every year. A fire hall built today is only as good as the maintenance budget that keeps it running in 2030. A sidewalk promise today means nothing if the capital reserves are depleted when it's time to pour the concrete. I had lots of ideas about what I wanted to be included in the budget, and I wanted to support the budget. And I'd considered sharing those, but after a number of attempts of bringing ideas forward this term, realized they would not be meaningfully considered. It's been a difficult decision for me, and it's one I put a lot of thought into. But for all these reasons and more, I will not be supporting the budget this year. It's the first time in 2 terms. Thank you very much.
All right, any other discussion? Yeah, Councillor Martins?
Thank you. Yes, I do have speaking notes because I did do my research and I came prepared. I don't think that's a slight on people at this table. On March 9th, I spoke about the difference between what our community needs and what is nice to have. Today, I want to speak about something equally important, making sure the investments we are committing to today do not come at the cost of the investments our community will need tomorrow. I support our firefighters. I've supported them consistently, including attending the fire department's own workshop presentation, which I might note not all members of this council attended. I support our RCMP officers. I care about their mental health and well-being. It was my motion early in this term that was endorsed by by council to build a new gym for all personnel working at the RCMP detachment, a sanctuary for physical and mental wellness. I support the essential protective services in this budget, and that includes proper equipment, proper training, safe work conditions, sufficient staffing numbers, and advocating for needs and shortcomings. But here is what concerns me. The financial plan draws heavily from reserves to balance the budget today. When those reserves are depleted, and on this trajectory, they will be, there will be less money available for new fire halls, improvements for additional firefighters, for the community services that our growing neighborhood needs. Supporting a budget that feels good this year, but leaves our community shortchanged in upcoming years, in 2028 or 2029, is not supporting our first responders. It is setting them up for a hard conversation later. I have heard from residents who are feeling economical stress, families choosing between activities for their children and keeping up with the rising cost of just living. They are not asking us to stop investing. They are asking us to invest wisely and to be honest about what we can sustain. And when I look at the 5-year projections, a 22.8% property tax increase proposed for 2027, debt servicing climbing towards $74 million in 2030, I have to ask, what services will we cut to balance those future budgets? Which community programs will be deferred? Which neighborhoods will have to wait? Those are the questions a long-term fiscal plan would answer. That is why I supported Councillor Whitmarsh's motion for a long-term fiscal responsibility plan, and why I continue to believe it is the responsible path forward. This whole budget process has not permitted opportunity to implement a needs-based framework that distinguishes between essential services and discretionary spending. That framework, bringing that framework to the community before we bring it to a vote, and asking residents directly, given the fiscal realities, what matters most to you? That is not happening today, and it should be. My vote today is not against community investment. It is for sustainable community investment, the kind that ensures there is still money in the bank for the priorities that matter most.
Councillor Bailey?
Well, I find myself agreeing with Councillor Whitmarsh about long-term. And if you want to have an example of that is look at Hall 5. That hall, the first hall that's built since 2006, will serve this community without any alterations, without any renovations, or without anything for at least the next 30 to 40 years. It is built for 2.5 crews because we know, for the first time right now, we're getting decent service down in Brookswood, not 15 to 20 minute response time. And we are going to hopefully add to that with a rescue unit or other needed things down there. So, yep, I'm all on about long-term, and that's what building these facilities is now. The 5 rinks that are being built and will come into service soon will serve this community well for decades. The soccer campus will serve not only the community directly with soccer, but will also serve long-term the 2 schools that are being built right beside it with no facilities at all. So that is long-term planning. The main reason I agreed to run is public safety. And however you want to word it, if you vote against this budget, you're voting against 17 firefighters being hired. You're voting against police being hired. And talk about the gym that is almost finished. That was recognized by myself in the very first visit there when I asked Inspector Wade, can we fill that hole in up there? So you want to come and talk about that. Let's also talk about voting against the fencing that will go around the RCMP right now, and especially how that fencing will keep the support staff safe leaving in the darkness and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm all about long-term, and that's what this is. When you talk about reserves, so much has been ignored, like building a fire hall. So let's go there. Hiring of firefighters. When I started this term, there was 18 firefighters to serve the whole community. That's not even enough to adequately deal with a single fire structure. Now there's much more, and with the addition of 17 new fire positions, it is going to be a much safer community, especially in Aldergrove, where they now have more firefighters and they can actually meet the requirements of the WorkSafe BC's occupational health and safety regulation. So this is a long-term budget. There is a time when you have to spend to play catch-up and at the same time spend to build for the future. And that's what this council, or the majority of this council, has been doing. So I am very proud to support this budget, because there comes a time when you have to quit talking the talk and you've got to walk the walk, and you've got to spend some money sometimes. So I will be supporting this budget.
Councillor Ferguson?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's always an interesting debate. Budgets are important. The things we're actually elected to do is to go through the process with our staff and understand the actual procedural manner. I think I'd have to agree with Councillor Whitmarsh as well, is the opportunity is always be upon every single councillor procedurally. If you are not happy with the budget and you want a higher increase for all sorts of reasons, make the amendments, make it a 10% increase, make motion by Councillor Whitmarsh, 10% tax. And that way you'll get some of your needs met, because 1% equals, I guess, about $1 million or something a year. So, but anyway, you can make that motion. You can make a motion also on anything. That's procedurally what we do. Yes, I guess I've actually, some people get confused how long I've been here. My second term back after 10 years out of council. You know, we did have a motion, and motions are made by the councillor, and it becomes the product of the estate, which is the council. So a motion was made, J1, March 9th, by Mr. Councillor Woodward, seconded by Councillor Richter, and then it became property of the council. There were amendments made, and amendments 1, 2, 3, and 4, all regarding long-term fiscal responsibility and plenishment and revenue diversification, conscientious. That was passed. That was in the minutes. It's in the minutes here. It was passed. So that motion that was a property of council was regarding long-term fiscal response in the minutes was passed. So that's another thing. Okay. There's lots of dialogue and concern, I guess, by my colleagues about if you support something. I want to build a capital project. But it's okay to talk about, make the motion second, but if you don't fund it, then it becomes void and null. It doesn't matter anymore. So if we as a council said, we're going to vote against this budget, that way all those projects, fire projects, police projects, park and rec projects, school parking and other roads, and the list goes on and on and on, they would become void. All the good work the staff did, or some of the council members, maybe some of them, all that work that they did is null and void. Think about what that means. It's okay for me to stand up here and comment, but that's what it means legally. So we pick up the phone all your friends or mayor, phone all the mayors you've worked with, phone all the councillors, phone everybody in the region. Those of you that have gone to FCMs, LMLGAs, phone, ask them if the council votes against a particular budget, it goes null and void. Anyway, and by the way, Mr. Mayor, I have a little bit of a five years universal operating budget. Okay, the projections for 2015 were 2.9%, approved 3.67. 2016, the projections 1.59, 393, 217, approved 399, and we go all the way up here to Councillor, it was in 2024, the projection was 10.3%, the budget approved was 6.88%. 24, the projections, 25, projection almost 13%, approved 4.5%. 2026,
The projection's almost 20%, 18.24. We approved 3.97, and in 2027, all those folks at this table are talking about 22.8%. It will probably be less than 5. Those are things you can look it up. It's all part of our public information. There will not be a 22%, nor has there ever been a 22% in the whole time I've certainly seen these budgets. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to support this budget because I think it's a good budget. And it's probably one of the better budgets I've seen over the years. So anyway, I'm approving it. Thank you very much. I'm going to vote for it favor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to acknowledge the work of the township staff in preparing this financial plan. My comments today are about process and transparency, not about the people who built the document. Under the community charter, any council must adopt a 5-year financial plan bylaw before the annual tax rates bylaw and no later than May 15th. That is the legal requirement. What is not required is that we rush to adopt a bylaw whose financial schedules have been altered since receiving 3 readings without a single word of written explanation. On March 9th, Council gave bylaw 6207 for second and third reading. Schedule B attached to that bylaw contains specific figures for revenue, expenditure, and transfers across all 5 years. The Schedule B before us tonight is not the same document. At least 8 line items have changed. The total financial plan for the revenue for 2026 is increased by over $600,000. Property tax projections for 2027 to 30 are higher. Capital expenditures are higher and reserve contributions are higher. For the record, I want to note that it is not a standard, or it should not be a standard practice to alter the financial schedules of a bylaw between third reading and final adoption without a covering staff report or council resolution directing the amendment. Every previous stage of the budget, February 23rd, 2026 and March 9th, 2026, came with a written staff report. The final and most consequential stage today did not. That is a gap in the process that residents are entitled to be concerned about. I echo Councillor Whitmarsh's broader concerns about financial trajectory embedded in this plan. And tonight, my primary concern, though, is simpler. Transparency requires that when numbers change in a bylaw, the public record reflects what changed and why. We need a budget process that includes a covering staff report at every stage, meaningful public consultation before the plan is finalized, but based on the numbers that are in the plan, as well as a debt repayment plan. The standing rule that any change to a bylaw is in financial schedules between readings and adoption should be accompanied by a written explanation on the public record. And these are not radical proposals. They're just basic standards of transparent governance. I have not supported this budget because I do not believe the process has been transparent. I still don't believe the process has been transparent, and I will be voting against this bylaw tonight or today. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, thank you for all those comments. Is there any other discussion or comments? Yeah, I certainly appreciate, again, the staff doing the heavy lifting on preparing the bylaw and the 5-year financial plan and everything the council has approved throughout the year and leading up to this budget, multiple year capital projects. You know, I think it's what we're seeing here is pretty classic politics, that if you have good outcomes, you have to go after the process because the outcomes are positive. So all you have left is to criticize the process. And it's the same, largely the same process that has been around here for multiple years. Now, of course, being made an issue of it because I think what we're seeing is the outcomes that are being produced in our community are fabulous, and I obviously support them. In this budget is 17 firefighters, including 16 new firefighters to staff replacement Fire Hall 8 in Brookswood. Without this budget, that fire hall would not open. It funds four new RCMP members spread out from 25 and 26 that would not be added to our public safety. It includes new equipment for new fire apparatus for Fire Hall 5 and other apparatus, including personal protective equipment and turnout washers for firefighters to prevent cancers as much as possible. It includes security upgrades for safety for our RCMP members and at our RCMP detachment. Something as simple as fencing the parking lot. It includes accessible upgrades for the Bell Park Playground in Brookswood. It includes 208th Phase 4, finishing 208th Street at 83rd Avenue. The one gap left that's had some challenges getting addressed here this year. It includes funding for the 212 connector from 220th Street to 77A Avenue, required by an agreement with the school district for the new middle and high school in Willoughby. It's pretty hard to have a school if you don't have a road to get to it. There's water metering funding for townhouses and apartments and single-family homes to reduce living costs for many, especially those in smaller apartments and other strata developments. Without that program, there's no way for them to have equity in what they pay. It includes replacing Walnut Grove Strawberry Reservoir this year and next. Long-term planning to replace that reservoir that's been in place for years, finally underway this year. Something as small as support for expansion of the Langley Blaze at McLeod Athletic Park. A long-term 5-year rural and local reconstruction program that gets underway this year started in this budget because we're spending so much money maintaining roads, not thinking long-term, starting to rehabilitate and reconstruct them to reduce operating costs in our paving program. It includes finishing Yorkson Community Park south of 80th Avenue. Walking track, playground, picnic areas, and access out to 80th Avenue for more parking and preparation for, hopefully, an elementary school there, which allows a Willoughby Community Center at Willoughby Town Center. It includes Walnut Grove Secondary Community Park upgrades, Phase 1 for North Langley Diamond Sports at Walnut Grove Secondary. So some will give speeches on one item about wanting to see schools for students to go to while voting against roads to get there. You can't make this up. You just literally cannot make this up. And so if one more person were to change their mind here today, none of these things would occur. But of course, it is easy to vote against a budget when you know 5 other people will do the right thing and move the community forward, while others are already clearly conducting their election campaign. We're governing, getting things done and moving the community forward, just as we said we would do. You cannot say that you support public safety investments, that you support your RCMP members, that you support your firefighters, you support your bylaw officers when you vote against them. You vote against even hiring them to staff a new fire hall for Brookswood Fernridge. The two are incompatible, despite what people say. Of course, they're going to say that, but it's obviously demonstrably false. You cannot have one without the other. Not one meaningful amendment brought forward. Well, they're just going to vote it down. We voted for motion after motion after motion. We've been begging for ideas year after year after year, getting almost nothing in return. So it falls to us again and again and again to govern and move this community forward, from capital projects to new bylaw department, to staffing a fire hall in South Langley where there isn't one and hasn't been one for decades. Investment after investment after investment. What we say we're going to do, we're going to do. We don't vote in favor of a high school and then vote against the road to get there. And again, you can't make this up. When you don't like the outcome, you attack the process. It's transparent and it's cheap. I have never voted against a budget because I have proposed amendment after amendment to budget after budget. Even the budgets with the amendments were not accepted by council, still voted for the budget. Township needs a budget. Township needs to be governed. And while those are playing games, giving speeches, we're moving the community forward. With that, I'm going to call the question on final adoption of this year's budget. That carries Councillor Kuntz, Councillor Martins, Councillor Richter, and Councillor Whitmarsh, all opposed. So with that, we'll carry on with item J2, Community Cost Charges Bylaw. I'll move final reading, seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on J2? Councillor Martins.
Thank you. I'll be voting in favor of this bylaw. Amenity cost charges are an important tool to ensure that growth contributes to the community amenities it demands. However, I need to put a concern on the record raised at third reading. The 79 million borrowed from the Neighborhood Parkland Reserve, the Sewer Capital Works Reserve, and the Public Works Equipment Replacement Reserve for the Arena and Smith Athletic Park cannot be repaid through this bylaw because provincial rules prohibit funding pre-adoption costs. At the March 9th meeting, staff confirmed that repayment options include reserves, general revenue, or voluntary contributions, but there's no published plan. Through the mayor to staff, upon adoption of this bylaw, will staff be bringing forward a specific repayment plan for the 79 million in internal borrowing, including a timeline and identified funding sources?
No, there's been no direction to do that.
So, sorry, could you say that again?
There's been no direction from council for staff to prepare that for you.
Okay. At the March 9th meeting, we learned that the ACC bylaw will operate alongside the interim voluntary amenity contribution policy, both simultaneously. Through the mayor's staff, for a new development application received after adoption of this bylaw that involves a plan amendment and bonus density, will the applicant pay ACCs under this bylaw, negotiate a voluntary contribution under the interim policy, or both? I want the public to have clarity on what they can expect.
Through your worship to Councillor Martins, that specific scenario you've indicated where bonus density is sought, and the assumption we're making is that there's a plan amendment on a new application. Both the ACC bylaw and the interim policy will be applicable because we do not have a bonus density bylaw at this time, and the ACC bylaw is for new applications that would be plan compliant.
Okay. So my final question, along that line, in fact, through the mayor to staff, is it the province's intent that ACCs and voluntary community amenity contributions operate simultaneously, or does the provincial framework anticipate the ACCs replace voluntary contributions? Can staff point to any provincial guidance on this question?
Yeah, I think we're going to probably leave you asking staff questions about provincial intent. I'll leave you to pursue that with the province.
Okay, well, I'll just reframe my question then. Can staff point to any provincial guidance on replacing the voluntary contributions with ACCs, or if they can be charged at the same time?
To your worship, to Councillor Martins, ACCs are an optional tool the province has provided and amended the legislation to allow municipalities to use. There's best practice and a guideline which the staff have followed and brought forward for council's consideration.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is an additional fee then, in answer to my question about what clarity. We're just adding a new fee on.
That's
To your worship,
not what I heard, Councillor Martins. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Staff does not indicate there's any additional fees. Staff are indicating that we're using provincial guidelines and best practices when the ACC bylaw was drafted.
Right, and I understand that, but we're continuing on with voluntary amenity contributions as well, so we're doubling up.
To your
No,
worship,
that's
to
not, that's not
Councillor.
correct, Councillor Martins. Maybe a meeting with staff would be appropriate to help you.
I would love to have a meeting with staff.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate. Councillor Whitmarsh, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. On the, I'm just to start, I am supportive of this ACC bylaw, but I just had a couple of questions. And I don't know if this question is better answered through to staff or through yourself, Mr. Mayor. The question is around the ACC bylaw and how long it's taken for us to get to this point, when it seems like a lot of other communities have done it much quicker. And I'm just wondering, how would we answer sort of the delay of us getting to this point with the ACC bylaw?
Through your worship to Councillor Whitmarsh, it's an optional tool. Some municipalities, depending on staffing resource, competing priorities, were able to implement it sooner. We're given council direction and conducted several public engagement sessions, and then brought the items forward and reviewed our internal staffing resource and competing priorities as well. Obviously, some municipalities use external consultants to review, which we have as well. So the external consultants do have a substantial amount of municipalities reaching out to them, because there's not many that have the expertise or experience dealing with ACC bylaws.
Okay, so it's optional for municipalities to have an ACC bylaw, but the previous CAC bylaw is no longer allowed to operate within municipalities. Is that correct?
There's no CAC bylaw, and the interim policy is still in place.
The interim policy is still in place.
That's correct.
And so the ACC policy is optional by the province.
But the ACC is a bylaw, and it's an optional tool that municipalities can employ. That's correct.
Okay, so there would be, so obviously if it's optional, there is no deadline by the province of when we would have it or do it, because it's optional. Communities don't have to have an ACC bylaw.
Through your worship to Councillor Whitmarsh, there's no specific deadline that ACCs are mandatory and have to be adopted by, whereas I believe there's several other items off the top of my head, and I might be misquoting the bills. Bill 44 or 47 had specific deadlines that it needed to be adopted by.
Okay, so, and our interim amenity contribution, we could have that continue on for, for a long period of time? There's no requirement to eventually stop the interim amenity charges?
That's correct.
That can go on forever, in theory?
Yes.
Okay. And can an ACC bylaw consider bonus density, a bonus density clause within the ACC bylaw?
The ACC bonus density is achieved through a different bylaw structure. Mr. Coon?
That is correct. That would be a bonus density bylaw that would council would consider, which would include inclusionary zonings as well.
Okay, and we don't have that currently.
Through your worship to Councillor Whitmarsh, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Richter?
Yeah, well, in June of 2025, the court declared the CAC policy invalid and beyond township's legal statutory authority. The ACC bylaw, this bylaw, is what is provincially authorized. And so we need to proceed, in my opinion, with this bylaw because it's statutorily required or authorized. However, like both Councillor Martins and Councillor Whitmarsh, I share concerns about running ACCs simultaneously with interim voluntary community amenity contributions. Even though I have those concerns, I figure it's the interim policy that we have that's the problem. It's not this bylaw. So I will be supporting this bylaw. Thank you.
Any other discussion on J2? No, seeing none. To transition to amenity cost charges bylaw has been an interesting one. To see members of council voting against collecting community amenity contributions from development, supporting developers over residents. And this has been, I think, a chronic challenge that we've seen, that some almost seem to want CACs to fail. They almost seem to want the inability the Township of Langley to collect these revenues for the benefit of residents, because it directly benefits their program, to essentially discredit a financial plan that's working. So we see this constant commentary around community amenity contributions, voting against collecting them, because if you vote against the community amenity contribution interim policy, you have voted in favor of developers over property taxpayers. It's as simple as that. And we again and again and again see this commentary around community amenity contributions, trying to demonstrate that something nefarious is going on, which directly benefits developers, and a handful of them, those involved in commencing the lawsuit against taxpayers. They didn't sue the township, they sued taxpayers to not contribute to this community. And we see again and again a desire to see community amenity contributions fail, despite the fact that we've collected millions in CAC since that Nothing Burger lawsuit. And so again and again and again, I think we're beginning to see a theme emerging that we want the plan to fail, we want the township to fail, and I think it's really, really sad. I think again and again and again, we have to prioritize a balanced plan that prioritizes taxpayers and has growth paying for growth, not trying to find any loophole you can think of to undermine the interests of the corporation of the Township of Langley, and especially make taxpayers pay more. And make no mistake, that's exactly what's happening. With that, I'm going to call the question on J2. Yeah, I've called the question, Council Whitmarsh. I understand, I've called the question. As per the council procedure bylaw, I've called the question. As the council procedure bylaw indicates, when debate is concluded, I have the discretion to call the question, and that's what I've done.
Well, I'll challenge the chair.
I've called the question. There is nothing to challenge, Councilor Richter. If you're not voting, you'll be noted in favor. Great. Great. That passes unanimously. Move on to item K1. This is being deferred. It is now back on the floor, moved by Councilor Richter, seconded by Councilor Whitmarsh. Is there any discussion on this motion? I see we have a second motion here under P2, which is potentially more appropriate to deal with this item. Councilor Richter?
Yeah, I had originally moved this motion to ensure that Ms. Goris's request receive fair consideration through the proper advisory process. And now that the Recreation, Culture, Parks Advisory Committee has made a recommendation, then they have reviewed the situation. I respect that recommendation. However, I want to be assured that their recommendation, which essentially doesn't say, no, we don't want the artwork in question, but that it doesn't fit under the current public art policy and should be essentially delayed until that policy is updated. So do we have any idea when a revised public art policy will be coming to council? And if we do have an idea, is it staff's intent that Ms. Goris please be encouraged to resubmit under the new policy?
To your worship, to Councilor Richter, at this time, staff don't have any direction to update or amend the council policy 06024 public art.
Okay, but doesn't the recommendation from the committee say something that just says it just doesn't fit under the policy?
To your worship, to Councilor Richter, the Recreation, Culture, and Parks Advisory Committee's recommended motion at P2 states that council does not acquire the artwork from Suzanne Goris based on the current council policy. That's all that's stated in the recommended motion.
Well, in that case, Mr. Mayor, I would like to propose a motion or a subsequent motion that the policy be updated and that Ms. Goris be invited to reapply under the updated policy.
Would you like to do that under P2? I'm not sure how to reconcile two items about the same item.
I can do it under P2, yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe make a recommendation. We move this along by disposing of K1 and then addressing how we're going to deal with the committee's recommendation under P2, and hear that there?
Okay, but I'm reluctant to vote against it because I don't want the door slammed shut on her without an updated art policy.
Then you would vote in favor of K1?
Yes, okay,
Yep.
fine.
So seeing no discussion, I'll call the question on K1. Okay, well, that carries with Councillor Bailey, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Rent, Mayor Woodward opposed. I'm going to move reconsideration of that and get that back on the floor. So I want to clarify again that I think the appropriate process here is if council wants to support it, we've got a motion under P2, which I just said from Councillor Richter, we would hear her referrals and amendments, whatever form they were. But now we've theoretically carried this to go for staff report. So I think we'd like to vote again and defeat K1 and substantially consider the item under P2. I'm going to call the question again on K1. And that carries with Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Coons, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Rent, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Woodward opposed. Anybody have a mayor and council report? Councillor Martins? No? Mayor and council report. Councillor Ferguson?
Well, of course I do, if I may. First of all, I have something that you're going to put up on the screen, if I may, to the clerk. And it's hopefully short, because we've got a lot of stuff to do today, but it's important. Okay, so are you going to run a video, or are you just going to show the pictures, if I may, through a chair?
I believe you had three pictures before the video. Is that correct? Because there's this picture. Didn't go. It's coming to my other screen.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. There you go. And then I can quickly do the comment.
Unfortunately, it looks like it cannot run today.
Okay. If you want, just go to the picture then, please. Just a pitch. Okay, this is have you got more than one picture or just one?
I believe you sent 3.
Okay, I
Yes.
can, okay, there's a number of, I just want to say that there's a number of pictures here regarding what a upgraded transportation station looks like. This involves upgrading all your mixed paper, all your plastics, all your recyclable, and there's going to be a workshop there for anybody who wants to do recycling changes. And this is going to be in the existing recycling area that we have in Aldergrove currently right now. There was a video that showed a little bit how it goes in detail. $20 million is going to be spent in Aldergrove, thanks to the work of Mayor Woodward and myself at Metro, explaining in detail how important it was to have this transfer station in Aldergrove. So it's jobs, it's money coming to Langley, and it's a very extremely positive thing for our residents. Okay, and the next thing I have is we had as we all know, an atmospheric river that went through the region and also Squamish, Fraser Valley Regional District as well, and Langley's infrastructure held, including the 40th Avenue area there where we replaced a pipe. And thanks to our staff, our drainage system is working very, very well. And that's pretty well all I have to say, other than positive things are happening in Langley and money's being spent and jobs and income going forward. Oh, and one last thing is there was maybe I'll ask Mr. Winslade for help, the Indigenous junior basketball tournament was held at the LEC, if you may, through a chair.
Yes, to Councillor Ferguson. The junior all-native tournament has U18 and below. I think there was somewhere around 150 teams, and they indicate between 8,000 and 10,000 people in the community. The finals were on Friday, and a record crowd. I think 2,400 people watched the finals there, from what I understand.
So positive things are happening again at the LEC, as we all know, and that was the first time I believe they've been there. And it was another last pictures I have of the invasion. There was an invasion in Aldergrove, if I may. Okay, there was an invasion of the early beats. The Beatles were in Coghlan Hall, and it was because of the Lamb, the people that actually drive our cars in the parade. And actually, I have a copy of the 50-year MG Jaguar Club. They were there, and it was a good time had by all. We have all these kind of community centers and community parks, and as an example of a British invasion and something very, very positive happening in the Township of Langley. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Just to keep it brief, I attended the Langley Chambers Women's Business Network International Women's Day Luncheon. That wrapped up a week of events for International Women's Day. This particular luncheon had a panel of healthcare specialists who spoke about caregivers prioritizing their own health and wellness in order to avoid caregiver fatigue. And it was a good reminder and a great event, sold out crowd.
Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, a couple of very cool smaller community events occurred. The Aldergrove Skating Club had a wonderful show up in the Aldergrove rink there, and it was great to see how many kids, young ones, were participating in the skating club. Also on Saturday, another really cool small event that reflected this community, and that's Seedy Saturday at the Arboretum. It was a pleasure to go and talk to people who are swapping seeds and different people that are bringing things that really reflect a significant amount of what goes on in the community. And then the other day, I went through Hall 3 and see how the renovations are going through at Hall 3. And after years and years of neglect, that hall is finally going to serve the community much better than it has, and even better than that, it is going to finally serve the firefighters that are in that station. It was in horrible condition, and it's roughly a $3 million renovation. They're going right to the studs on it, and I am so glad to see that that hall is finally being brought up to standard that it should be to keep the firefighters safe.
Councillor Coates?
Yes, first I'd like to congratulate the Trinity Western men's volleyball team as they won the 2026 U Sports Championship, defeating UBC. So just want to congratulate them. I also attended the City of Langley Volunteer Banquet last week, and many of us were at the chamber event last week where we heard from our federal MPs and provincial MLAs, and I really appreciated the conversations about their role as the opposition and their comments about the budget. I also attended the BC Farm Museum Cleanup Day, except I was a week early. So if anybody wants to come and help out the BC Farm Museum on Saturday. So anyway, that's my mayor's report.
Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I had the opportunity to watch one of my favorite shows that I follow very strongly because it's a CTV show called Tracker, and it's filmed in many parts of the Lower Mainland, including Langley. So I was very pleased and delighted and somewhat surprised to see on the March 15th show of Tracker that Township Hall was featured as St. Patrick's Hospital. And they did a wonderful job portraying our hall. And I didn't even think that our hall could have a second life as a hospital, but I guess we never know what can be done. I wanted to thank our staff very much for the work that they do to foster the support of the film industry in our community. And it's always a pleasure to see Langley featured in so many local shows. Thank you.
Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight a presentation that was made just this last week at the Langley Aldergrove Rotary from the Rolling Barrage, which is a group motorcycle ride that combats PTSD among veterans and first responders. And it was an amazing presentation, but what's interesting is that one of the, really the last or I guess it's the last stop on their trip across Canada actually ends in Aldergrove. And it comes in August, and one of the things they commented on is that in past years there hasn't been quite as much fanfare as they get in other cities, and so this year they're going to have a couple of really large Canadian flags to have big fanfare as they arrive. 140 riders or more are expected to do the ride, and so you'll probably hear more as we get into August. But to maybe be there, they arrive at the Legion in Aldergrove as one of their last stops before they dip their wheels into the Pacific Ocean. So very exciting, and it was a great presentation. So I'm proud of what the work they're doing. Thank you.
All right, is there any discussion on items 1 through 4? All right, move to items for information. Motions arising for information. I'll move P1. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on P1? Seeing none, call the question on P1. That carries unanimously. Item P2, Councillor Pratt, did you have anything on P2? No? Does anybody wish to move the recommendation or an alternative version? Councillor Pratt, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move it, but I did just want to have a comment as well.
Okay, so seconded by Councillor Ferguson. So the motion P2 is on the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And I just wanted to sort of reassure council, and Councillor Bailey can echo the comments as well. I'm sure that the conversation that the committee had at the committee table around this was really robust, and I was really happy to see how thoughtful all the conversation was around it. Ms. Goris had the opportunity to delegate to the committee, had a good back and forth conversation with all the members, and then the conversation thereafter took quite some time, and it wasn't a decision made lightly. And so everybody on that committee wanted us to reiterate that we strongly encourage Ms. Goris that when the opportunity arises to participate in the public art policy, when there's a procurement plan, to do so. So just wanted to have those comments read out here at council.
Yes, and I don't know if I should propose this as an amendment or a separate motion, but if I was going to present it as an amendment, I think it could also stand as a second motion after we deal with this one, that council asks staff to update the public art policy, number 06-24, and then that staff invite Ms. Goris to resubmit her artwork under the revised policy when it is completed.
You want to make that,
Should it be
capture that in a referral if you're looking to have
okay, that would be good. I'll make a referral then.
So maybe Ms. Bauer, do you have that as a referral for an updated policy and then to revisit the issue? In the form that Councillor Richter has requested.
Yes, that can be done.
Councillor Richter, do you wish to have it read back?
I can reread what I've got written here if it helps staff capture it. Okay, what I have written here is the council asks staff to update the public art policy, council policy 06-24, and that staff invite Ms. Goris to resubmit her art under the revised policy once it is completed.
There's a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Coast. Councillor Richter, go ahead.
Yes, I do think that I can understand the restrictions on the preferred location that she had in mind for her art, because the Shalishan is a venture that we've undertaken with the Kwantlen First Nation. And so First Nation arts should probably be predominant in that particular facility. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other facilities in the township that might be able to host the display of the art piece in question, either on a rotating basis or on a permanent basis. So that's the rationale for this.
Councilor Bailey, we're on the referral.
Yeah, I'm going to vote against this. There are assumptions being made that this is only done because of the policy. There was a very significant conversation from pretty well all the voting members in that committee that this, in many ways, did not fit into what's going on right now. Ms. Goris did a great presentation and answered the questions, and really it was really enjoyable to see her pride in her work. But there were many concerns, not just the policy, and the committee discussed this at full length and then said, no, this does not fit. And I do not think this is appropriate we send it to the committee for input, and then essentially by doing this referral, and especially the way it's worded, we're saying no to the committee and their decision. So I respect, I was there, I heard it, and no, I respect how the committee looked at this fully, and I will not vote for this referral.
Yeah, thank you. I just heard that there were many concerns raised, and I'm wondering if Councillor Bailey can elaborate on what the other concerns were, because that's not available to us in this package.
Yeah, I think we're trying to move along here. I think the concerns are wrapped in their recommendation to not pursue it. Do you have anything else on the referral?
So you can't elaborate on what the concerns are. That's all I'm trying to find out. Sounds like there was a lot made, and I would appreciate some more words on that.
Okay, we're on the referral, so I'm going to call the question on the referral. The referral is defeated. Councillor Bailey, Councillor Ferguson, Councillor Pratt, Councillor Rent, Mayor Woodward opposed. Now back to the motion under P2. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, call the question on P2. That carries with Councillor Richter opposed. Item Q1, I'll move it. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Is there any discussion on Q1? Seeing Councillor Kuntz, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I really want to support this motion. You know, there's been a lot of families in Aldergrove that have been raising concerns about this intersection for some time. So happy to support this motion. I just wanted to talk about this in a little bit of a broader context as far as the 268th Street and Fraser Highway intersection is one of several locations in our community where children are crossing to school without adequate pedestrian infrastructure, no sidewalks or protected crossings or safe to walk signals. So this is something we're seeing across the township, and it connects directly to the commitments council made 2 weeks ago when we adopted the transportation and mobility strategy. So through the mayor to staff, will the staff report requested by this motion be prepared within the framework of the TMS?
Yeah, just to clarify, council did not adopt that strategy. It referred it for additional public consultation.
Okay, so say, I guess, would this motion still, fall into that?
This motion would be for a specific report to look at that intersection and potentially evolve it into a capital project to address the community concerns.
Okay.
It may or may not be informed by the TMS if adopted.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Martins, go ahead.
Thank you. I support this motion. Community safety, in particular the safety of children walking to school, is something I take very seriously. I have seen the online petition, and I recognize that the families in Aldergrove who have been raising these concerns deserve to be heard, and staff report is a constructive response. I'm wondering, though, if perhaps we can move an amendment along what Councillor Kuntz was referring to, that we have a broader review of pedestrian safety near schools across the township. So I heard the TMS being referenced. Is that already included in the TMS? Should it be adopted by council?
To your worship, to Councillor Morton's, are you asking if specifically Fraser Highway and 268 Street is included in the TMS or just guiding principles?
I was asking about a broader review of pedestrian safety near schools across the township.
To your worship, to Councillor Morton's, generally speaking, that's a larger, broader discussion, which I believe is within the TMS framework and also in a separate traffic calming item, where that does mention schools as well.
Okay, so I don't want to delay this item. I recognize the concerns in Aldergrove specific to this intersection, so I won't move an amendment. But I will do another deep dive on TMS just to see if we're covering off this point in the broader context. Thank you.
No discussion. Call the question on Q1. That carries. Councillor Bailey opposed. Is there any other business? All right, does anybody have any items for closed?
I do.
Councillor Ferguson. Bailey.
One legal?
Put my mic back on. Bauer, I have 2 legal items, so do you have all 4 of those? Yes, great. Let's get a motion to resolve into closed. Moved by Councillor Pratt. Seconded by Councillor Rint. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? That carries. Councillor Richter opposed. The motion to terminate. Moved by Councillor Rint. Seconded by Councillor Bailey. All those in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. Thank you.